Chapter 41-51. In the celestial temple, Nye Tian looked at the person in front of him and couldn't help but exclaim in astonishment. How is this possible? The person standing in front of him was actually a 15 to 16-year-old youth, but his aura was much stronger than his own. The strangest thing was that this youth's body was completely made of flesh and blood, no different from an ordinary cultivator. However, his body constantly exuded the powerful aura of a spirit formation, which was clearly condensed from the power of a spirit formation. What kind of strange formation was this, to actually be able to condense a real person with flesh and blood? After so many years, a decent opponent has finally appeared. At this time, the youth opened his mouth. His eyes were as bright as the stars as he looked at Nye Tian and nodded repeatedly, appearing to be very satisfied. Nye Tian couldn't help but be startled. You have your own consciousness? Of course. The youth laughed and said, I am called Human Extremity, the guardian of the 7th floor of the Celestial Temple. You are not bad, worthy of my full strength. Human Extremity? Hearing this strange name, Nye Tian's eyes slightly trembled as he asked, You are human? I guess so. Human Extremity laughed again and said, I was once the avatar of that old man, but that old man treated me well. He created a real body for me and even allowed me to have my own consciousness. However, before he died, he imprisoned me in the Celestial Temple forever and made me the guardian of the 7th floor. The gatekeeper of the 7th floor. Old man? Nye Tian couldn't help but be confused. The first-generation emperor of the angel race. Human Extremity laughed, appearing to be very excited. Little brother, I have guarded this place for millions of years, and you are the most special challenger I have ever seen. I have never seen an outsider enter the Celestial Temple. There is a first time for everything. Nye Tian faintly smiled and asked, Human Extremity, this Celestial Temple is a formation formed from the first-generation Emperor's body, right? Mortal Extremity nodded and said, This old man has devoted himself to the angel race. Even after his death, he still offered his martial body. Unfortunately, no matter how powerful he is, he can't escape the fate of the angel clan. Tribulation? What tribulation? Nye Tian frowned and couldn't help but ask. These are things that the angels should worry about. It's useless to talk too much with you. Let's have a go. Human's Extremity didn't want to say too much to Nye Tian. Instead, a fiery light flashed in his eyes as he rubbed his palms together and said, As long as you can block 3 of my punches. Otherwise, I will let you go to the 8th floor. 3 punches? Nye Tian, on the other hand, was stunned. He had already sensed that Human Extremity's cultivation was far above his own. He should be in existence who had reached the peak of martial art. How could he block 3 punches from such a person? Little brother, don't be nervous. Human's Extremity smiled again and said, I definitely won't take advantage of you. I will suppress my cultivation to the same level as you. Also, we will only compete in martial physique and nothing else. As soon as he finished speaking, Human's Extremity released a ray of light and his entire aura changed. As expected, his cultivation level was the same as Nye Tian's, level 5 of Tianyi. Competing in martial physique. Nye Tian's eyes trembled slightly and he had a playful look on his face. He had never lost to someone of the same level who competed in martial physique. However, the Human's Extremity in front of him obviously couldn't be judged by normal standards. Human's Extremity was a clone left behind by the first emperor. After gaining his own consciousness, he was basically a true martial artist. Human's Extremity had guarded the heavenly temple for tens of millions of years and had seen countless geniuses. In addition to his understanding of martial arts, he was definitely a terrifying opponent. Although Human's Extremity suppressed his cultivation level, Nye Tian could still feel the terrifying aura from his body. This was a type of disdain that stood above everyone else and looked down on the world. I'm making my move. Just then, Human's extremity spoke softly. His body moved as fast as the wind, and he punched out with all his strength. The void cracked and the fist was unstoppable. What a fast speed! What a powerful strength! Nie Tian's heart skipped a beat and he reacted instantly. He punched out and instantly, the sound of metal colliding could be heard in the air. The two figures retreated at the same time and then stabilized themselves. His martial physique is comparable to mine. Nie Tian's eyes trembled and were filled with shock. In the past, he had an overwhelming advantage when competing with other martial artists of the same level. However, when facing Human's extremity, he had no advantage at all. What a good opponent! Human's extremity's eyes trembled as well. However, it was filled with passion and excitement. He was extremely agitated and said, I didn't expect that your martial physique has already reached the limit. Human's extremity was the limit that a human could reach. Human's martial physique had almost reached the limit. Even without using saint energy, his powerful physical body was harder than black iron. The reason why Human's extremity was able to achieve this was not only because he had perfectly inherited the talent of the first emperor, but also because he had pushed his martial physique to the limit after thousands of years of training. However, Nie Tian looked so young. He was at most a few hundred years old. In the eyes of a martial artist of the Saint realm, he was simply a baby. How could he have such a powerful martial physique? For the first time, Human's extremity felt great pressure. Previously, the opponents he had encountered were basically unable to withstand a single blow. Those who could exchange a punch with him were considered to have passed. However, Nie Tian was different. Nie Tian had the strength to defeat him. Kill! In the next moment, Nie Tian roared and took the initiative to attack. He punched out violently and fiercely. Good timing! Human's extremity smiled excitedly. His fist was like a knife and it struck out aggressively. Light appeared in the void. When a martial artist's martial physique was strong to a certain extent, they could create the image of light even without using saint energy. Bang! The two fists collided again and sparks flew in the air. It was extremely dazzling. The two figures retreated at the same time again. However, this time, Nie Tian retreated 3 steps while Human's extremity retreated 5 steps. Nie Tian was slightly better. The third punch! Nie Tian shouted excitedly when he felt that his martial physique had been stimulated. I'm done. However, Human's extremity waved his hand and said with a smile, I'm not as good as you. I admit defeat. Admit defeat? Nie Tian's eyes flickered as he asked in confusion. Human's extremity was the gatekeeper, but he actually admitted defeat. I admit defeat. I admit defeat. Human's extremity waved his hand again and suddenly laughed. He said, Your martial physique is stronger than mine. You are the real Human's extremity. It seems that I should give up my position as the gatekeeper and let you take over. Chapter 41-52. This guy's martial physique has already reached its limit, yet he is still getting stronger. What a freak. If I were to exchange a third punch, I'm afraid I won't be able to get up. Human's extremity stared at Nie Tian's back as his lips twitched. Blood slowly flowed out from his mouth. At this moment, he looked at Emo Wuji's back with fear in his eyes. He was imprisoned and would never be able to leave the heavenly temple unless someone defeated him and was willing to replace him. For thousands of years there had been countless people who had succeeded in his hand. However, Nie Tian was the first person to defeat him. I wonder what the result will be when this guy fights with the other two. Human's extremity couldn't help but look forward to whether the other two would be defeated by Nie Tian. Of course, he knew that the other two were stronger than him. However, he had a feeling that they would also lose to Nie Tian. He entered the 8th level. At the same time, outside the heavenly temple, the skinny ancestor and the rest stared at the moving dot of light in shock. Nie Tian had just entered the 7th level, yet he had already passed. What was going on? The 7th level's mortal's extremity test would normally take up a few days or even longer. This was because the martial artist had to fight with the mortal's extremity until the latter acknowledged their strength. Could it be that the mortal's extremity had acknowledged Nie Tian's strength? But how was that possible? The mortal's extremity's martial physique was already at its limit. Unless the mortal's extremity felt that Nie Tian's martial physique wasn't any weaker than his. This kid is actually this strong? The skinny ancestor's gaze trembled slightly as a fiery light flickered in his eyes. And in the 8th level of the heavenly temple, Nie Tian carefully stood there, constantly sensing the fluctuations of energy in his surroundings. Kid, you're not bad. You can actually defeat the mortal's extremity. At this moment, a deep voice came from the void. It had a hint of a sneer. In thousands of years, you are the first to achieve this. Looks like you are the 8th level's guardian. Nie Tian suddenly turned around and saw a shadow lurking in the darkness. His heart stirred and the energy in his body began to circulate. Don't be nervous. However, right at this time, another voice sounded. Then, a streak of light that was like a white rainbow appeared. Within the blinding light, a pure and holy figure walked out. Nie Tian's expression changed. He turned to look at the newcomer, and his heart trembled. The newcomer was dressed in white, and holy light shone around him like snow. Mysterious runes flowed around his body, making him look extremely strange. This person's aura was very similar to that of the human extremity, but it was purer and more vigorous, giving off a threatening sense of oppression. Moreover, his appearance was almost identical to that of the original emperor. Presumably, he was also a clone of the first-generation emperor. An expert. Nie Tian's eyes trembled, but he soon calmed down and said indifferently, I didn't expect there to be 2 guardians on the 8th floor. You are wrong. I am not the guardian of the 8th floor. I am the guardian of the 9th floor. The white-robed cultivator smiled faintly as he looked at Nie Tian. Clearly, he was sensing something. I am the Earth's pole, he is the heaven's pole. In the next moment, another person walked out of the darkness, revealing a slightly sinister face. He smiled at Nie Tian and said, It's the first time the heavenly temple has ever seen someone come out from the same place and challenge the trial together. The Earth's pole, the heaven's pole. Nie Tian's gaze trembled, and his heart trembled. So the guardian of the 9th floor had come down to the 8th floor. This was something he didn't expect. Am I that scary? He couldn't help but bitterly smile, thinking that the other party was making a fuss out of nothing. There are many who have passed the 7th floor, but you are the first to defeat the human extremity. The Earth's pole's lips curled up into a smile. The 3 of us have guarded this floor for millions of years, so we cannot lose face in your hands. So to be on the safe side, it's better to be careful. All right, Nie Tian said with a bitter smile. Then, he glanced at the 2 of them and said, Please. You're welcome. The heaven and earth responded at the same time, and the 2 figures moved simultaneously. Suddenly, the sky sank and 2 shocking auras appeared, pressing down on Nie Tian. Nie Tian's eyes narrowed. He felt as if he was stuck between 2 giant walls, and the 2 walls were about to crush him to death. The heaven and earth had suppressed their cultivation to level 5 of heavenly righteousness, but the power they unleashed was far beyond that of an ordinary level 5 heavenly righteousness cultivator. Boom! Nie Tian stomped on the ground, and instantly, dragon chi surged out of his body, shaking the heaven and earth. The heaven and earth's pole and human's pole were different. They did not only compete with one's martial physique, so Nie Tian didn't have to worry. Bang! Bang! In the next moment, 2 muffled sounds rang out at the same time, and the sky shook violently, forming waves that reached the sky. The heaven and earth's figures swayed at the same time, and they were forced back a few meters. Nie Tian, on the other hand, coughed up a mouthful of blood under the immense pressure, and his face turned slightly pale. Good lad, you can still stand under our attacks. The Earth's pole steadied himself, and his eyes turned cold, and the aura around him turned darker. This dragon chi is very unusual. The heaven's pole frowned and his face darkened. He had never walked out of the celestial temple, but he had some understanding of dragon chi. He could tell that the dragon chi released by Nie Tian was no ordinary dragon chi. But the strange thing was, Nie Tian wasn't a member of the dragon clan, so how could he have such a terrifying dragon vein? Human's pole, you want to defeat me in 3 punches? Are you two going to fight me in 3 moves as well? Nie Tian wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and smiled cold. Lad, don't provoke us. The Earth's pole's eyes suddenly changed, and his eyes became as deep as the abyss. He shouted, if you can withstand 3 moves from the 2 of us, we will admit defeat. How could he not see that Nie Tian didn't want to fight to the end with them, so he used this method to provoke them? The reason why he agreed was that if the Heaven and Earth's Poles alliance couldn't defeat Nie Tian in 3 moves, then there would be no point in continuing the fight. Alright, then I'll attack first for the second move. The corner of Nie Tian's mouth twitched, and his aura instantly rose to the limit. The heavenly Tao shackles appeared, and like 9 giant snakes, they attacked the heaven and earth at the same time. Child's play. The Earth's pole smiled cold, and he reached out with his palm. Immediately, a dark aura that looked like the end of the world appeared, enveloping the surroundings and devouring everything. Chi chi chi. Then, an ear-piercing sound came from the void. The 4 heavenly Tao shackles were devoured by the dark aura. Chapter 41:53. Outside the heavenly temple, the skinny ancestor and the rest were dumbfounded. Their expressions of concentration perfectly displayed their astonishment. On the 8th level, the heaven's pole and the earth's pole appeared at the same time. This was something that had never happened before. Ancestor, what is going on? Suddenly, Xingguang Yu reacted and asked the skinny ancestor with a trembling voice. I don't know either. The skinny ancestor shook his head and said, for the heaven and earth to act at the same time, there is only one possibility. They feel that Nie Tian has the ability to force them to work together. This. Xingguang Yu's gaze trembled. Could it be that the reason why Nie Tian passed the 7th level so quickly was because he defeated the Earth's pole? That should be the case. Although he found it unbelievable, the skinny ancestor still nodded his head. The challenger had defeated the guardian. This was the first time something like this had happened in the heavenly temple. Boom! Boom! At the same time, within the heavenly temple, a series of violent explosions could be heard as a terrifying force came crashing down. The dazzling scene of darkness and light intertwining was filled with murderous intent. Heaven and earth, light and darkness, collided and destroyed everything in its path. Nie Tian's eyes trembled slightly. He did not expect the heaven and earth to be so terrifying. At this critical moment, he no longer hesitated and activated the godly physique. The power of the godly physique overturned the heaven and earth, forming a terrifying vortex in the air that forcefully devoured the heaven and earth energy. How is this possible? The Earth's pole steadied himself and exclaimed in shock at the scene before him. He could not imagine that Nie Tian could still stand so stably under the combined attack of the 2 of them. Powerful! The Earth's pole's eyes trembled as he exclaimed. Nie Tian's strength had far exceeded his expectations. It was no wonder that the Earth's pole did not dare to fight against Nie Tian for the 3rd time. Nie Tian had a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth, but his eyes were blazing with fighting spirit. I still have one last move. All right. The Earth's pole's eyes dimmed as he looked at the Earth's pole. Third brother, let's do it together. The corners of Earth's pole's mouth curled up as he spoke indifferently. After that, his figure flashed, and he actually transformed into a ray of black light that fused into one with heaven's pole. Nie Tian's expression changed, and he couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. Right at that moment another aura appeared. Like a stream of light, it entered Heaven's Extremity's body. The Heaven's Pole's body trembled as his aura completely changed. He stood in place, majestic like a mountain, surging like the ocean, as if he possessed boundless power. This is... Nietion's eyes trembled as he exclaimed in shock. He didn't expect that heaven, earth, and man could merge into one. The three of us have become one. What you are facing now is the complete power of the first Emperor. Heaven's Extremity spoke in a deep voice. His eyes flickered like stars while his body flowed with divine light, causing him to seem extremely pure and holy. Nietion's eyes narrowed slightly. At this moment, the Heaven's Pole was giving him a great sense of oppression. The angel of the first Emperor was indeed extraordinary. Nietion guessed that the first Emperor should be an expert from the same generation as the Heavenly Emperor. It definitely wasn't a coincidence that the child of the prophecy was imprisoned in the Angel's Gate by the first Emperor. Perhaps there was a grudge between the first Emperor and the Heavenly Emperor. Brat, if you can take a palm strike from me, the celestial temple will be yours. Heaven's Pole's eyes were like torches, and a strange flame burned in his eyes. This was true fire, an incomparably powerful fire-attributed energy. Nietion was overjoyed. He didn't expect that there would be such a benefit. The celestial temple was a powerful formation. Moreover, it was formed from the first Emperor's martial body. If he could obtain it, his position in the angel tribe would definitely be even more important. Come on. Thinking of this, Nietion's lips twitched. His battle-intent soared, and the god and demon inverse mark became even more obvious. The god and demon aura around him surged like a torrential waterfall. Very well. You are worthy of me going all out. Heaven's Pole spoke in a low voice. His aura surged like flowing water, but it contained an astonishing amount of power. 9 wings, sky-covering palm. In the next second, Heaven's Pole's aura skyrocketed to its limit. 9 pairs of angel wings appeared on his back. They were as white as light, glaring and blinding. Nietion instantly felt the pressure, and his heart trembled. Heaven's Pole was currently at level 5 of the heavenly righteous realm, but he could form 9 pairs of angel wings. This was too terrifying. One should know that even Qi Xinu, who was known as a taboo, could only form 5 pairs of angel wings at the same level. Without a doubt, Heaven's Pole right now was far more terrifying than Qi Xinu. In the blink of an eye, a terrifying force came crashing down. Like a collapsing mountain, it pressed down on Nietion. Heavenly Defying Sword, 3 talents returned to 1, Heaven and Earth Rule. Nietion's eyes dimmed. He growled and the sword aura around his body exploded to its limit. His swords will shot through the air and exploded as if it was going to drown the world before him. Vroom! In the next second, the sound of the sword piercing through the clouds arose. Instantly, the shadow of the sword howled like a dragon and shot through the sky. Like the light of dawn breaking through the darkness, it pierced through the sky. This time, Nietion no longer held back. Under the stimulation of the demonic and divine energy, his swords will broke through its original limit and exploded with power. Bang! In the sky, the shadow of the palm and the shadow of the sword clashed together. Heaven and earth exploded and a terrifying wave of energy rippled out in all directions. Hum, 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 hiss, hiss, hiss in the sky, horrifying explosions and sounds of impact lingered. It was as if the entire world was about to be destroyed. The surrounding space shook. Under the impact, the heavenly temple shook non-stop and was on the verge of collapsing. Nietion and Heaven's Edge were drowned in it and could no longer be seen. After Heaven's Edge merged with the humans, its power was infinitely close to that of the first Emperor. The power that it exploded with was terrifying, and after Nietion activated the demonic and divine body, he used the ultimate move of the Heavenly Defying Sword and also displayed the extreme power of the 5th level of Heavenly Righteousness realm. The two represented the limits of martial arts. The clash of extremes was unprecedentedly violent. After a long time, the violent energy in the sky gradually dissipated and the sky returned to peace. Nie Tianling stood in the same spot like a mountain, unmoving. However, blood dripped from the corner of his mouth and his face was as white as paper. It was obvious that he was severely injured. On the other side, the three figures, heaven, earth, and human, stood there. They were trembling and actually swaying. The three of them had ugly expressions. The way they looked at Nie Tian was complicated. Shock, confusion, but most of all, fear. They had lost in one move. Chapter 41-54. Even though he had merged with heaven and man, he was still defeated by Nie Tian. The three of them looked at Nie Tian, unable to react for a long time. Nie Tian took a deep breath. His pale face turned for the better as he said with a faint smile, "Gentlemen, according to what you just said, the heavenly temple should be mine, right?" This man's extreme's expression froze. His face was extremely ugly and he was unable to speak. When Nie Tian attempted the 7th level, although he was defeated, he never thought that Nie Tian would be able to defeat their fusion technique. Earth's extreme's expression was even uglier than man's extreme's, but he didn't say anything. Instead, he looked at heaven's extreme, waiting for the latter to make a decision. He won. Heaven's extreme's expression was cold and solemn. After a long time, he opened his mouth. His tone was filled with helplessness and unwillingness. Then, he slowly bent his waist and knelt in front of Nie Tian. Heaven's extreme pays respect to heaven's limit. Earth's extreme and man's extreme's expressions changed. They hesitated for a moment but still knelt down. Heaven's limit? Nie Tian couldn't help but frown when he saw their actions. "Gentlemen, please rise. What is the meaning of this?" Earth's extreme and man's extreme stood up, but their attitudes were clearly much more respectful. Heaven's extreme nodded and said, "When the first emperor fell, he left behind his last words. The person who can defeat the three of us will be the master of the heavenly temple, in other words, a heaven's limit." "Yes." Earth's extreme frowned and nodded. "A heaven's limit is an extremely special existence. According to what the first emperor said, a heaven's limit is an existence above the emperor. Even higher than the emperor." Nie Tian's eyes trembled. He was quite shocked. Just now, he only wanted to obtain the heavenly temple and use it to raise his status among the angels. He didn't expect that he would unexpectedly become a heaven's limit, even higher than the emperor. "Yes." Man's extreme also spoke. "Back when the heavenly temple was first created, the three of us were waiting for a heaven's limit to appear. But regrettably, after millions of years, the angel race has never produced a heaven's limit." As he spoke, he laughed bitterly and continued, "Who would have thought that the heavenly limit was an outsider?" The heaven's extremities and the earth's extremities looked at each other and smiled bitterly. If the first emperor had known that the heaven-bound expert was an outsider, would he have left behind such words? Nie Tian's lips twitched as he asked with a faint smile, "I'd like to know if you're the only one who recognizes my status as a heaven's terminator, or does the entire angel tribe recognize it? That will depend on how much prestige the first emperor has left in the angel race." Heaven's pole also smiled. He had the same worries as Nie Tian. If Nie Tian was a member of the angel race, no matter how strong he was, the angel race would recognize him. The problem was that Nie Tian was an outsider. It was indeed difficult for the entire race to recognize the supreme status of an outsider. "Lord Heavenly Limit, why did they allow you to enter the celestial temple?" At this moment, Heaven's pole frowned and his eyes flickered as he asked. "You can just call me by my name from now on. I'm Nie Tian." Nie Tian smiled faintly and told them everything that had happened. "So that's how it is." After hearing Nie Tian's story, the three of them were extremely shocked and could not react for a long time. They never expected demon god Qi to break free from the shackles of the angel gate. What was even stranger was that Nye Tian had absorbed the eternal light. It was no wonder the current emperor allowed Nye Tian to enter the celestial temple. "Gentlemen, I would like to know who exactly is this demon god Qi?" Seeing their reactions, Nye Tian frowned and asked, "Also, what kind of power is the eternal light?" Demon god Qi was a world-destroying demonic creature in the early primordial era. He once ruled the angel race for hundreds of thousands of years and killed nearly half of the angel race. In order to prevent the angel race from being slaughtered by demon god Qi, the first emperor led the angels to resist and finally defeated demon god Qi. Heaven's Pole said solemnly, "As for the eternal light, I don't know what kind of power it is." Back then, the first angel was able to defeat demon god Qi by relying on the eternal light. Nye Tian's eyes narrowed slightly as he asked, "Then have you heard of the name Firmament Great Emperor? Human Sovereign?" The three of them exclaimed in shock when they heard the name. "You know this person?" Nye Tian's eyes flickered with surprise. "The human sovereign controls the firmament, the protector of the heavens from a long time ago. He was known as an expert who stood at the peak of the firmament." Heaven's Pole was stunned for a few seconds before he said solemnly, "The first emperor once sought guidance from him on the martial Tao. The two of them were not master and disciple in name, but they shared a master and disciple relationship." Master and disciple? Nye Tian was stunned and even suspected that he had heard wrongly. He never would have imagined that the firmament great emperor and the first emperor were actually master and disciple. He had originally guessed that the two of them were enemies. The eternal light that the first emperor used to defeat demon god Qi was given to him by the human sovereign. Heaven's Pole then revealed another shocking piece of information that stunned Nye Tian again. Nye Tian's expression changed slightly as he felt some doubts in his heart. The prophecy Holy Seal changed when it met the prophecy child, causing the prophecy child to break free from the suppression of the eternal light. The prophecy child was the person the firmament great emperor asked Nye Tian to find, but he was imprisoned by the eternal light. The strangest thing was that the eternal light actually came from the firmament great emperor. The prophecy child should be someone very important to the firmament great emperor, so why did the thing that was suppressing him come from the firmament great emperor? The illogicality of this made Nye Tian very puzzled. There was another point that he found strange. According to Heaven's Pole, the firmament great emperor was once the protector of the heavens. However, his actions did not resemble a protector at all. Vaguely, Nye Tian smelled a trace of a conspiracy. "Nye Tian, are you all right?" Heaven's Pole couldn't help but frown when he saw Nye Tian in deep thought. "I'm fine." Nye Tian smiled faintly and didn't say anything else. Following that, he asked about some matters regarding the firmament great emperor and the first emperor. Heaven's Pole and the others didn't know much, so they only gave a general explanation. After a while, Nye Tian prepared to leave the heavenly temple. It was time to meet the four ancestors and Xingguang Weiyu. The Heaven's Pole trio each left a rune on Nye Tian's body. They were the Heaven's Saint Rune, the Earth's Saint Rune, and the Man's Saint Rune, representing Nye Tian's status as a Heaven's Pole practitioner. At this moment, Nye Tian was still too weak to fully open the heavenly temple. Thus, he couldn't let the three ancestors leave the heavenly temple. He could only wait until he was strong enough before opening the heavenly temple. Very soon, Nye Tian walked out of the heavenly temple. He was greeted by many shocked and dazed faces. The skinny ancestor and the others looked at Nye Tian as though they were looking at a monster. "Are you all right, seniors?" Nye Tian asked with a smile, his face expressionless. Chapter 41-55. Celestial Saint Runes. Outside the celestial temple, the scrawny patriarch's face changed in shock when he saw the three saint runes in Nye Tian's palm. Celestial Saint Runes, Earth Saint Runes, and Man Saint Runes. Nye Tian had obtained 3 Saint Runes, which meant that he had obtained the recognition of 3 extremities and become a heaven's limit. A heaven's limit, the supreme existence of the angel tribe, who was even more powerful than the emperor, had finally appeared. Ordinary members of the angel tribe might not know, but the scrawny patriarch naturally knew that the heaven's limit was a decree left behind by the first emperor. Anyone who obtained the recognition of three extremities would become a heaven's limit. Unfortunately, after the death of the first emperor, no one from the angel tribe had obtained the recognition of three extremities. Who would have thought that the first outsider to enter the celestial temple would obtain the recognition of three extremities, obtain 3 saint runes, and become a heaven's limit? Hearing those words, Xinguang Yuyu's face warped in shock as he exclaimed, "Heaven's limit!" He had never expected the legendary heaven's limit to appear, and it was an outsider at that. An outsider had become the supreme existence of the angel clan. This was bound to set off a monstrous chaos in the clan. "Patriarch, what is a heaven's limit?" And Yeming frowned and couldn't help but ask. Even though he was the leader of the 9 great elders, he had never heard of a heaven's limit. Therefore, he was very confused. What kind of existence was a heaven's limit that could cause the patriarch and the emperor to lose their composure? A heaven's limit is a decree left behind by the first emperor. The scrawny patriarch forced himself to calm down and explained in a deep voice what a heaven's limit was. "So that's how it is." The other great elders were shocked. They didn't expect a heaven's limit to exist in the angel tribe. It's a pity that after the first emperor left his decree, no one from the angel tribe was able to obtain the recognition of 3 extremities. The scrawny patriarch sighed and glanced at An Yeming and the others. "Everyone, now that a heaven's limit has appeared, what do you think?" "No. Absolutely not." An Yeming reacted and let out a strange cry. He pointed at Nye Tian and said, "He's an outsider. How can he be a heaven's limit expert?" That's right. Since the heavenly limit is the supreme existence of the angels, how can we let an outsider take the position? The angel tribe has never allowed foreign races to participate. Heaven's terminators are existences that surpass the emperor. They can't be outsiders. Outsiders are bound to have different intentions. The fate of the angel race must be in our own hands. Outsiders cannot become a heavenly terminator. All the higher elders expressed their opinions. Clearly, none of them agreed with Nye Tian. The skinny patriarch had expected this. He glanced at the other 3 patriarchs and nodded slightly. Xinguang Yuyu's face darkened. He remained silent for a long time. Nye Tian looked at the crowd. He had already guessed that this would happen, but he didn't expect the upper elders to have such a huge reaction. "It seems like none of you intend to acknowledge this heaven's limit expert." The skinny patriarch waited for the upper elders to calm down before speaking in a deep voice. His eyes flickered with a strange light. "Patriarch, since the first emperor thinks so highly of the heaven's limit expert, he must have placed the fate of the angel tribe on him." An Yeming stepped forward and said, "Ever since the rise of the angel tribe, we have always relied on ourselves. We have never relied on others. If we let an outsider control the fate of the entire angel tribe, we can't agree. We can't agree to letting an outsider control the fate of the entire angel tribe." "So you're saying that you want to go against the first emperor's will?" The skinny patriarch frowned. Then, his expression darkened. He looked at An Yeming and the others and said, "What if I insist on making Nye Tian a heaven's limit expert?" "Patriarch, you mustn't do that." An Yeming's eyes narrowed. Then, he knelt in front of the skinny patriarch and said, "This matter is of great importance. Please reconsider, Patriarch. Please reconsider, Patriarch." The other upper elders knelt down as well and shouted in unison. The skinny patriarch looked at the other 3 patriarchs. The 3 of them had similarly darkened expressions. Clearly, they had other thoughts in mind. The 4 patriarchs had a close relationship. The other 3 could tell that the skinny patriarch wanted to support Nye Tian, so they didn't say much. "Emperor, what do you think?" The skinny patriarch fell silent for a moment before he turned to look at Xinguang Huaiyu and asked, "As the emperor, I naturally have to abide by the first emperor's will." Xinguang Huaiyu frowned and said, "Since the first emperor made the decision to become a Heaven's Limit expert, I will definitely abide by it." Abide. An Yiming didn't expect Xinguang Huaiyu to say this. His expression changed and he sneered, "Woman, you shouldn't have become the emperor in the first place." Xinguang Huaiyu's pretty face changed instantly. Cold killing intent surged in her eyes as she stared at Xinguang Huaiyu coldly and said, "An Yiming, please watch your words. I'm the emperor and you're the first elder. My status is higher than yours. Your current attitude is disobedience. So what if I'm disobedience? Do you dare to kill me?" An Yiming was not afraid at all. With a roar, his aura skyrocketed. He was about to attack. "Do you think I don't dare?" Xinguang Huaiyu's pretty face turned cold as her aura skyrocketed. Bang! Suddenly, the two auras collided in the void, causing the whole world to tremble like a mountain. The others were stunned by the scene in front of them and were momentarily speechless. "Have you two had enough?" At this time, the skinny old ancestor roared. Suddenly, an earth-shattering mighty force surged out and forcibly pushed Xinguang Huaiyu and An Yiming away. The two of them retreated at the same time and were unable to stand still. "This old ancestor is so strong." Nie Tian's eyes trembled and he was shocked. Both Xinguang Huaiyu and An Yiming were peak experts, but this skinny old ancestor was obviously stronger than them. The skinny old ancestor looked extremely thin and weak, giving off the feeling that he was on the verge of death. Who would have thought that he was actually so strong? "Old ancestor." Xinguang Huaiyu and An Yiming steadied themselves in fear and trepidation. "One of you is the emperor, and the other is the first elder. How dare you kill each other? What a scandal!" The skinny old ancestor reprimanded coldly. Xinguang Huaiyu and An Yiming lowered their heads and did not dare to speak. Then, the old ancestor said, "Put this matter aside for the time being. Do not mention it to our clansmen." It was indeed unacceptable for an outsider to be a celestial pole expert. If the other clansmen knew about this, it would definitely cause a great commotion in the Angel clan. For the stability of the Angel clan, the best way to deal with this matter was to keep it a secret and not admit or deny it. Okay. Xinguang Huaiyu and An Yiming nodded, agreeing with the skinny old ancestor's way of dealing with this matter. "Old ancestor, what should we do with him?" An Yiming looked at Nie Tian and said, "He still has the eternal light." Chapter 4156. An Yiming stared at the backs of Nie Tian and the four patriarchs. His eyes flickered with a cold light, as if he was a man-eating beast. How could he not see that the skinny patriarch had already acknowledged Nie Tian's identity? The fact that the other three patriarchs didn't say anything meant that they had tacitly agreed. Furthermore, Xinguang Huaiyu held Nie Tian in high esteem. Therefore, Nie Tian's status as a Heaven's Limit was basically confirmed. "Great Elder, the patriarchs naturally have their reasons for doing this. We should support them," Xinguang Huaiyu said calmly, as if trying to appease An Yiming. "Support?" An Yiming sneered and said, "Letting an outsider become the Angel tribe's Heaven's Limit is a disgrace to our tribe." Xinguang Huaiyu's pretty face darkened. She said coldly, "The first emperor gave us millions of years. Has there ever been a Heaven's Limit of the angels? Although Nie Tian is an outsider, he has absorbed the eternal light and obtained the Heaven's Saint rune. Do you think this is just a coincidence? A Heaven's Limit is a Heaven's Limit. It has to be someone who can lead the angels out of their predicament. It doesn't have to be someone from the angels." An Yiming's face darkened. He didn't say anything else. The other elders didn't say anything either. However, they all had ugly expressions on their faces. It was obvious that they couldn't accept an outsider as a Heaven's Limit. Everyone, the matter of a Heaven's Limit is no small matter. I, the Emperor, hope that everyone can keep this a secret and not leak it. Xinguang Huaiyu's gaze swept across everyone present. Her entire body emitted a cold aura as she said, "If anyone leaks this matter, I, the Emperor, will not let them off lightly." After saying that, her gaze finally locked onto Darkrai's body. Everyone present could tell that her words were directed at An Yiming. Dark Knight Chime vehemently opposed the idea of Nie Tian becoming a heaven's limit. Based on Xinguang Huaiyu's understanding of Nie Tian, it was very likely that he would take the risk and inform the Angel Tribe about the existence of a heaven's limit. Through the Angel Tribe's opposition, he would be able to pressure the four ancestors. If things got to that point, even if the four patriarchs supported Nie Tian, they wouldn't be able to do anything about it. The four ancestors had very high statuses, but they couldn't dictate everything. If the entire Angel Tribe were to object, it would be a problem if Nie Tian, a heaven-rank expert, could survive. Dark Knight Cry stared coldly at Xinguang Huaiyu. He didn't say a single word. Xinguang Huaiyu did not force them. He turned to look at Zhuge Qiyun and the others and said, "Deans, Nie Tian's matter is of great importance. I hope that you can keep it a secret for my Angel Clan. Yu thanks you in advance." "Don't worry, Lord Emperor. We won't leak this matter." Zhuge Qiyun smiled faintly. The others quickly agreed. Zhuge Qiyun had not expected such a thing to happen during their trip to the City of Angels. Fortunately, Nie Tian had accidentally absorbed the eternal light and became a heaven's limit. Otherwise, things would have been troublesome. Zhuge Qiyun had already prepared for the worst. He had been prepared to force the Angel Tribe and had even been prepared to make a move. Unfortunately, he had greatly underestimated the Angel Tribe's strength. Firstly, Emperor Xinguang Huaiyu's strength had exceeded his expectations. Just him alone would require at least 2 Deans to join forces to barely stand a chance against him. Secondly, the 9 Great Elders were also very strong. They were all existences that were on par with them. The most terrifying thing was that the Angel Tribe still had 4 ancestors. Every ancestor was more powerful than them. If they were to use forceful methods, it would be very difficult for them to leave the City of Angels alive. Nie Tian had become a heaven's limit due to a freak combination of factors and avoided a huge problem. Next, Zhuge Qiyun and the others bade farewell. Since Nie Tian had the support of the 4 ancestors and the Emperor, his life would naturally not be in danger. Their mission had also been completed. There was no longer any meaning for them to continue staying here. At the same time, Nie Tian and the others appeared outside an ancient and sacred palace in the City of Angels. In front of them was a dilapidated palace. It was very small. Rather than calling it a palace, it would be more accurate to call it a small courtyard. However, this palace was very strange. It was clearly right in front of them, but it gave them the illusion that it was at the end of the world. What was even more strange was that the entire palace was enveloped by a layer of gentle light. It seemed a little illusory, as though it had detached itself from this world. Moreover, as Nie Tian stood outside the palace, his divine spirit fluctuated slightly. It seemed to be affected by something. His divine spirit was far stronger than that of an average cultivator. In addition, he had the support of the Eternal Night Demon Fox's immense spiritual power. Under normal circumstances, it would be very difficult for him to be affected. This palace in front of him could affect his divine spirit. It was definitely not simple. Nie Tian, do you know why the first-generation emperor has such high prestige in the angel race? The skinny ancestor bowed deeply to the palace in front of him respectfully before looking at Nie Tian and asking. It is said that the first-generation emperor defeated the Qi Fiend Celestial and saved the angel race from the fate of being slaughtered and destroyed. Nie Tian nodded slightly. Defeating the Qi Fiend Celestial and protecting the angel race are just some small things that the first-generation emperor did for the angel race. The skinny ancestor laughed and said, "To the angel race, The first-generation emperor is a kind of guardian spirit. He is loyal to the end of his life. Eyebrows furrowed, Nie Tian waited for the shriveled patriarch to continue. The skinny ancestor laughed and continued. Not only did the first-generation emperor protect the angel race, but he also allowed the entire angel race to flourish to this day. After he died, he dedicated himself to the angel race. His bloodline power condensed the angel gate. His martial body condensed the celestial temple. And his divine spirit became the Emperor's sole guardian in front of us. Emperor's sole guardian. When Nie Tian heard these few words, he could not help crying out in surprise. It turned out that the palace in front of him was actually transformed from the first-generation Emperor's divine spirit. It was no wonder that he felt such a strong spiritual impact in the palace that even affected his divine soul. Nie Tian, outsiders all think that the celestial temple is the supreme holy land of the angel race. The skinny ancestor nodded slightly and said, "Unfortunately, they are wrong. The angel race's true holy land is the Emperor's sole guardian. The Emperor's sole guardian was transformed from the first-generation Emperor's divine spirit and preserved the first-generation Emperor's memories. Memory and spirit." Nie Tian nodded slightly and looked at the Emperor's sole guardian palace in front of him with deep veneration. The first-generation Emperor was indeed a person worthy of respect. Even in death, he was still protecting his race. The Emperor's sole guardian never allows outsiders to enter. Even for members of my race, only the Emperor and High Elder have the qualifications to enter. The skinny ancestor looked at Nie Tian and laughed. Today, this ancestor permits you to enter the Emperor's sole guardian and accept the first-generation Emperor's divine spirit baptism. Chapter 41:57. What's wrong? Nie Tian was about to enter the sovereign spirit protection, but he was stopped by the fat cat and the ghost emperor at the same time. He could not help but stop and ask with a frown. "Be careful," the fat cat said in a deep voice. "This sovereign spirit protection is formed by the divine soul of the first emperor. What if you enter it and get possessed?" Nie Tian frowned. He had not thought of this. As the saying goes, one should not have the heart to harm others, but one should not have the heart to guard against others. Although the skinny ancestor seemed to treat him well, his real goal was definitely the angel clan. The sovereign spirit protection contained the divine soul of the first emperor, so it could indeed possess Nie Tian. The skinny ancestor saw that Nie Tian had suddenly stopped and immediately knew what he was thinking, so he said with a smile, "The first emperor has protected the angel clan all his life. Why would he possess someone else?" Nie Tian's eyes flickered. After thinking for a moment, he stepped into the sovereign spirit protection. He maintained his vigilance at all times, letting the eternal night demon fox use the mental shield to protect his divine sense. Perhaps the first divine emperor did not want to possess others, but it was not impossible that these patriarchs would not lay traps for Nie Tianxia. The moment he entered the sovereign spirit protection, Nie Tian felt a powerful divine soul attack. Divine soul power that was like rolling waves appeared in his mind, like the roar of a giant beast pressing down. Fortunately, he had the mental shield, and his divine soul was very stable. The skinny ancestor and the others saw that Nie Tian was very calm and could not help but be secretly surprised, but they did not say anything. Nie Tian stood on the spot and looked at the hall in front of him, his heart filled with shock. The entire hall was about 100 meters long and wide and dozens of meters tall. The hall was filled with colorful lights, crisscrossing and extremely dazzling. Here, one could actually feel the vastness of the universe, the vastness of the starry sky, and even a spiritual collision, making one feel relaxed and happy at the same time, making one feel insignificant. Nie Tian looked at the flowing light in front of him and was lost in it for a moment, deeply immersed. He saw that those rays of light were like lines of rain that flowed slowly, and their colors were constantly changing. It was like the cycle of a person's life, or the evolution of their thoughts. But then, those rays of light suddenly became violent. They were no longer as gentle as raindrops, but like sharp blades. They spun crazily, as if they were cutting something. Nietian was shocked. He wanted to withdraw his divine sense, but he found that his divine sense was trapped in a huge whirlpool. He saw himself madly running, but it was like he was trapped in a huge maze. He couldn't find the exit. Consciousness illusion. In an instant, he understood that he was imprisoned in an illusory realm of consciousness created by his soul. Nietian. At this time, Fat Cat and the Ghost Emperor shouted at the same time, but Nietian was in a daze and couldn't hear them at all. He entered the soul of the first emperor. One of the patriarchs behind the emaciated patriarch stepped forward and looked at Nietian. His previously empty eyes were now filled with the light of excitement, as if he was expecting something. His talent, martial body, will, soul, and other abilities far surpass warriors of the same level. He should be able to meet the first emperor's requirement. The skinny patriarch nodded slightly and said, "Now we just have to wait and see if he still remembers who he is when he wakes up." Boss, if his will can't withstand the first emperor's soul, wouldn't that be terrible? Another patriarch was worried and asked nervously. He can. The skinny patriarch's eyes trembled as he looked at Nietian and said heavily. The other patriarchs trembled inexplicably and didn't say anything else. At the same time, in the world of Nietian's divine sense, he saw himself trapped in a giant whirlpool that was rapidly expanding. Then, it turned into a majestic wave that crazily spread in all directions. The sound of crashing waves resounded in Nietian's mind. At the same time, countless shocking scenes appeared. The creation of the universe, the creation of heaven and earth, the rise of races, the primordial war, the collapse of heaven and earth, the separation of the sacred world. Shocking scenes flashed by, and endless roars stopped in his mind. In just an instant, Nietian felt as if he was experiencing the evolution of the entire universe. Then, he suddenly felt waves of soul power turn into sharp blades that enveloped him. Instantly, his soul was slowly being torn apart. Inch by inch, it shattered and dissipated. He was being taken over by a powerful soul. He was being possessed. Oh no! Fat Cat and the Ghost Emperor obviously knew what Nietian was going through. They shouted in unison, but there was nothing they could do. This was a battle of souls between Nietian and the first-generation emperor. They were powerless. Although they had warned Nietian before, they still couldn't prevent the tragedy from happening. These four patriarchs really didn't have good intentions. The skinny patriarch looked at Nietian and sensed the latter's soul ripples. He seemed slightly nervous and said, "Nietian, you are the heaven's limit chosen by the first-generation emperor. Your mission is to protect the angel race. Unfortunately, you don't have this ability. The first-generation emperor will borrow your martial arts to be reborn. Being reborn is the best protection you can give the angels." Boss, his soul aura has weakened. It seems that the first generation will be reborn soon, another patriarch said excitedly, his eyes burning with passion. Nietian's soul aura weakening undoubtedly meant that the first-generation emperor's possession was about to succeed. The skinny patriarch nodded and said, "Nietian, don't blame us. After you die, the city of angels will erect a statue of you. Your glory and status will be higher than that of the previous emperors." The skinny patriarch felt guilty for letting the first-generation emperor possess Nietian. But what was the point of erecting a statue after a person died? Next, the skinny patriarch and the others were very nervous. Their hearts were in their throats, and they didn't even dare to breathe loudly. They could feel that Nietian's soul aura was slowly weakening, like a candle in the wind that was about to be extinguished. A moment later, the skinny patriarch and the others suddenly felt a weak soul ripple that made their hearts tremble. Then, their blood began to tremble, and they vomited a mouthful of blood. "What's going on?" The skinny patriarch steadied himself. His decaying eyes flickered as he cried out in shock. He could vaguely feel that something bad was happening. In the next moment, the light above the entire Sovereign Spirit Guardian Palace was suddenly extinguished. The four patriarchs' hearts trembled. They immediately felt a chill run down their spines. Their bodies trembled slightly, and they almost couldn't stand. Why did the light of the Sovereign Spirit Guardian Hall suddenly disappear? This light was the first-generation Emperor's soul power. Had the first-generation Emperor's soul disappeared? At that moment, Nye Tian suddenly opened his eyes. His pupils were as eerie as the night. They didn't look like eyes at all. Instead, they looked like dark vortexes in an endless abyss. Chapter 4158. Nye Tian's eyes were as dark as the abyss. A strange power surged out of his body, like some kind of bloody rune. Under the influence of this power, his face looked hideous. It was as if his martial body and soul were not in the same space. "Boss, what's wrong with this kid?" an old ancestor shouted, clearly frightened. "Suppress him." The skinny old ancestor's eyes narrowed. Suddenly, all the power in his body surged out. It was like a tidal wave, rolling towards Nye Tian. Although he was dying, he was still able to maintain his fighting strength with the help of the special bloodline power of the Angel Clan. When his aura exploded, even a weaker sky martial divine ancestor would be crushed in an instant. But at this moment, he did not hold back. He attacked with all his strength, trying to suppress Nye Tian. He thought that Nye Tian must have been fighting with the first Emperor's soul. Their souls had gone against each other, causing their souls to be possessed. The current Nye Tian should be a combination of Nye Tian and the first Emperor. Nye Tian was not scary, but the first Emperor was extremely scary. Therefore, he had to give it his all. The other three reacted immediately. Their power exploded. Above the small Sovereign Soul Guardian Hall, there seemed to be 4 mountains rising from the ground at the same time. In the blink of an eye, the Sovereign Soul Guardian Hall was destroyed. The Sovereign Soul Guardian Hall was originally protected by the first Emperor's soul. At this moment, the power of the Soul Guardian Hall had merged with Nye Tian's body. How could an ordinary hall withstand the attack of 4 old ancestors? Boom, 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 boom. The next moment, 4 terrifying powers fell at the same time. They were like 4 dragons, causing the space to tremble. They attacked Nye Tian. Nye Tian's figure rose slightly, and he hovered in midair, expressionlessly watching. He slowly raised his arm, and numerous heaven saint marks surged out of his palm, forming a protective shield around him. Bang, bang, bang. Following that, a terrifying force descended. Sounds of explosions rang out in the sky, as though the entire world was about to collapse. The 4 patriarchs flew backward in an instant and spat out blood in midair. Phew! Hoo! Whoosh! In the void, angel wings appeared on the backs of the 4 figures. They were like giant birds, and the angel wings connected together, forming a terrifying bloodline barrier. Below him, Nye Tian's figure was as steady as a mountain. His eyes were incomparably dark, like a pitch-black blade that could tear everything apart. Just now, the combined attack of the 4 ancestors did not cause any harm to him at all. It did not even break through the shield around his body. The 4 ancestors sucked in a breath of cold air. Their eyes trembled slightly, and the fear in their hearts was written on their faces. The 4 of them were definitely the most powerful experts of the Celestials. Even with the entire All-Heaven Saints world in perspective, it was extremely difficult to find an opponent for them. Moreover, in the City of Angels, they had a special bloodline power to enhance their strength significantly. Under these circumstances, the combined attack of the 4 of them was actually unable to harm Nye Tian at all. How was that possible? Even if Nye Tian had fused with the soul of the first emperor and his soul had become demonic, he should not possess such great power. Even if the first emperor was in peak condition, he might not be able to withstand a combined attack from the four of them and emerge unscathed, right? There was definitely something strange about Nyetian. Boss, why is the aura circulating around him so dark? At that moment, an ancestor said with a trembling voice, "This doesn't seem like the power of the first emperor. I've sensed it a long time ago. There's an extremely terrifying power of darkness in this kid's body. However, his cultivation isn't there yet, and his martial body hasn't reached greater success, so he can't unleash the power." Another ancestor's eyes trembled, and a third eye appeared on his forehead. He stared fixedly at Nyetian and said, "I think the power of darkness in him must have demonized the first emperor's soul. I feel that it should be the power of darkness in his body that demonized the first emperor's soul, ultimately causing him to become demonic." Is this possible? The skinny ancestor's eyes trembled violently, and his heart was filled with horror. What cultivation did Nyetian have? What cultivation did the first emperor have? The two of them weren't even on the same level. What kind of power did Nyetian have in his body that could actually demonize the first emperor? What kind of character was the first emperor? How resolute was the heart of the guardian angels? How could he be demonized by a mere Saint Monarch? Reason told the skinny ancestor that it was absolutely impossible to demonize the first emperor just by relying on Nyetian's power. Unless Nyetian's body was hiding a terrifying divine soul that was at least on the same level as the first emperor, or perhaps even stronger. Just who is this kid? The skinny ancestor instantly felt his entire body turn cold, and was drenched in cold sweat. If he knew that Nyetian was so troublesome, he definitely wouldn't have taken the risk out of desperation. Boom! Right at this time, Nyetian's figure moved. Demonic energy rushed into the sky from his body, and the waves of demonic energy were like the roars of 10,000 beasts. The impact caused the void to shake, and cracks actually appeared in the surrounding space, spreading out like a spider web. "Make your move!" The skinny ancestor roared, and the 9 pairs of angel wings on his back moved in unison. They released a holy light that was like a waterfall that pressed down on Nyetian. At the same time, the other 3 ancestors also made their move. Under the flap of their angel wings, their angelic bloodline resonated and surged like the boundless sea. It turned into layers of endless waves that pressed down on Nyetian. The 4 ancestors activated their bloodline power at the same time, and the power of their bloodline resonated to suppress Nyetian. Such a tyrannical power was comparable to the aura of the sun god Sword Emperor and the others when they descended. Right at this time, Nyetian's figure rushed into the sky. The demonic energy around his body condensed into a terrifying claw that grabbed towards the sky. Boom boom boom, boom boom boom, chi. 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 For a moment, the sound of explosions rang out incessantly, and the world rumbled and trembled as if it was in great fear. In the sky, under the impact of the giant claw, rays of holy light and flames began to shatter inch by inch, dissipating into the void. The giant claw seemed to have the power to tear everything apart. Even if the 4 ancestors attacked at the same time, they couldn't withstand this power. Bang! 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 In the next moment, the layer of holy light under the bloodline resonance collapsed, and several muffled sounds were heard. The 4 blood-soaked figures were sent flying, drawing 4 bloody trails in the air. The power of the 4 ancestors' bloodline resonance was still destroyed by Nyetian's palm. How can this guy be so strong? The 4 stabilized themselves, and one of the ancestors spat out a mouthful of blood, looking shocked. "Boss, look at the demonic energy on his body." The 3-eyed ancestor suddenly discovered something and shouted. Chapter 41:59. The Chi Demon God. The skinny ancestor was in disbelief. How could he have imagined that the Chi Demon God's true form would appear outside of Nyetian's body? How was this possible? What was going on? The skinny ancestor was extremely shocked. He felt as if the sky above his head was collapsing and he was about to fall into an abyss. His momentary absent-mindedness almost made him collapse. "Boss, what's going on?" Another ancestor came to the skinny ancestor's side and asked anxiously. The Chi demon god's true form appeared outside of Nietion's body. This was too strange. The skinny ancestor felt cold all over. He shook his head helplessly and couldn't help but look at the three-eyed ancestor. The three-eyed ancestor had the angel's eye in his angelic bloodline. His perceptive ability was very strong and he might be able to see something. I don't know what happened in his body either. However, the first emperor's demonization must have something to do with the Chi demon god's power in his body. The three-eyed ancestor stared at Nietion with trembling eyes. It was unknown whether it was fear or shock. The skinny ancestor's face darkened. So the demonization of the first emperor's power came from the Chi demon god. No wonder the other's spiritual power was so terrifying. It was the Chi demon god. Although the Chi demon god was defeated by the first emperor didn't have the ability to kill him completely. He could only imprison him in the Angel's Gate. The first emperor was able to defeat the Chi demon god mainly because of the eternal light. Without the eternal light, the first emperor was no match for the Chi demon god. However, the skinny ancestor couldn't understand why the Chi demon god's soul was in Nietion's body. Could it be that the Chi demon god's soul invaded his body when he passed through the Angel's Gate? The skinny ancestor's mind was in a mess. He couldn't figure out what was going on. Boom. At this moment, Nietion moved. Immediately, a monstrous demonic aura surged and shook the surroundings. The world seemed like it was going to collapse. "Boss, what should we do?" Three-eyed ancestor looked at the skinny ancestor and shouted. "Stop him." The skinny patriarch let out a low roar, and the angel wings on his back flapped wildly. Beams of divine light were released, interweaving into a net of holy light in the void. Like a hand from the void, it enveloped Nietion. Seeing this, the other three ancestral patriarchs also released their bloodline power to strengthen the holy light net. Then, the giant net fell and directly enveloped Chi Mo's real body. The soaring demonic energy was suppressed and no longer spread. Boom boom boom. Chi Mo's true body struggled madly, stirring up the heavens and earth. The net of holy light shook violently and slowly began to crack. "Boss, this demon king is too strong. We won't be able to suppress him for long." Old Ancestor 3I came to the skinny ancestor's side and said with a grave expression, "We must suppress him. Otherwise, he will destroy the entire city of angels," the scrawny elder said in a deep voice. Although he sounded determined, there was a clear lack of confidence in his eyes. Chiemo was too terrifying. Even though he was unable to unleash his true strength in Nietion's body, the four ancestral patriarchs still couldn't suppress him. However, the four ancestral patriarchs had no choice but to suppress Nietion. Otherwise, Chiemo would definitely destroy the entire city of angels. The city of angels was the foundation of the angel tribe for millions of years. It was the lifeline of the entire angel tribe. If it was destroyed, the angel tribe would completely decline. Boom! Bang bang bang! At this moment, Chi Mo's true body went berserk. Terrifying demonic energy erupted and the holy light net began to crack. The four ancestral patriarchs desperately released their bloodline power to repair the damaged holy light net. However, their speed of repair was far inferior to Chi Mo's speed of destruction. At this rate, it wouldn't be long before the holy light net completely collapsed. "Boss, what do we do?" The three ancestral patriarchs panicked and looked at the skinny ancestral patriarch. "This is fate." The skinny ancestral patriarch sighed helplessly. "Ancestral patriarch, what's going on?" At this moment, Xingguang Huayu arrived with Anya Ming and the others. They were shocked when they saw the scene in front of them. "Chiemo." Anya Ming looked at Nietion and shouted in horror, "Didn't this demon escape from the city of angels? Why is he here?" Ah, wait, the person inside Qi Mo's true body is that kid. An Ye Ming could not believe his eyes. The figure inside Qi Mo's true body was actually Nie Tian. Nie Tian. Xingguang Yu also saw Nie Tian. His eyes narrowed and he shouted, "He's Qi Mo? Emperor, hurry up and suppress this demon." The skinny ancestral patriarch did not have time to explain and immediately shouted, "Yes." Xingguang Yu came back to his senses and responded. Immediately, the bloodline power in his body surged and thousands of rays of holy light bloomed, spreading toward Nie Tian like a huge wave. At the same time, An Ye Ming and the others also took action. 8 waves of powerful bloodline power surged and covered the void, mending the holy light net and suppressing Qi Mo. The 4 ancestral patriarchs, the emperor, and the 8 great elders activated their bloodline power at the same time. The angel wings behind them undulated like waves, creating a magnificent sight. Such a lineup could be said to be unprecedented, and the angel clan had never been so ready for battle since the era of the first imperial monarch. Roar. Suppressed by the holy light net, Qi Mo's true body outside of Nie Tian's body let out a roar that shook the heaven and earth. However, it was not the complete Qi Mo's true body after all. Under the suppression of so many experts, it seemed to be unable to keep up. It's suppressed. Ancestral Patriarch Three-Eyed's eyes flickered and he exclaimed in surprise. Don't be careless. The skinny Ancestral Patriarch was still very nervous. He growled and once again activated his bloodline power to the limit to suppress Nie Tian. He wanted to suppress Qi Mo's true body in one fell swoop. There was no room for error. The other ancestral patriarchs, the emperor, and the great elders took action at the same time. Instantly, the bloodline power in the void resonated endlessly. The entire heaven and earth shook and was on the verge of collapsing. Qi Mo's true body began to shrink under the tremendous pressure. Waves of demonic aura slowly gathered in Nie Tian's body. We're going to succeed. Everyone was overjoyed and excited. Angels, let me awaken the original sins in your bloodline. However, at that moment Nie Tian suddenly spoke. His eyes were as dark as the night sky and looked extremely fierce. It was obvious that he had completely lost his mind. As soon as he finished speaking, rays of black light began to emit from his eyes. Like black gas, they passed through the holy light net and coiled around it. Huh! The skinny ancestral patriarch looked at the incoming black light and immediately sensed that something was wrong. He exclaimed in shock. The black light seemed to contain some kind of strange bloodline power. It made him feel like his bloodline was trembling. In the next moment, an extremely strange scene occurred. He suddenly felt that his bloodline had become restless. Before he could react, his bloodline went berserk and charged madly inside his body. Chapter 4160. Bloodline Stripping. The skinny ancestral patriarch's body started shaking. He felt that his bloodline was being pulled out bit by bit. The pain was so excruciating that even a peak divine ancestor like him couldn't bear it. Compared to the pain on his martial body, his soul and heart were in even greater pain. Bloodline power was the innate power of a martial artist. It was a kind of power rooted in the martial body and divine soul. Once this power was stripped away, it would be a fatal blow to a martial artist. The skinny ancestral patriarch had never expected that demon god Qi could strip away their bloodlines. What was the original sin of bloodline that demon god Qi had mentioned? At the same time, the others also felt that something was wrong with their bloodlines. The weaker elders couldn't stabilize their bloodlines at all. They started vomiting blood and their faces turned pale. What's going on? The second elder, Lan Kexing, was panicking. He shouted and screamed, but he couldn't stop the bloodline power from being stripped away. Everyone, calm down and stabilize your bloodlines. On the other hand, Xingguang Yu was still able to maintain his composure. With a deep roar, he abandoned the net of divine light and focused his attention on defending his bloodline. The divine light net was important. However, if their bloodline power was stripped away, they wouldn't be able to maintain the divine light net and they would lose the ability to fight. The others followed Xinguang Huaiyu's example. Unfortunately, the bloodline power released by demon god Qi was too terrifying. Even if they resisted with all their strength, they could only slow down the speed of the bloodline power stripping away. They couldn't stop it completely. After a while, the sound of bones breaking, meridians intertwining, and blood rushing came from their bodies. The weaker elders couldn't hold on any longer. "Grand Elder, take them away first!" Xinguang Huaiyu shouted and signaled on Yiming and the others to leave first. "Okay." On Yiming stared blankly for a moment before nodding solemnly. Then, his figure blurred into motion as he retreated madly with the other high elders. Seeing that An Yiming and the others had already retreated several 100,000 meters away, Xinguang Imperial Universe sent a voice transmission to An Yiming and the others. "Great Elder, if I die, you'll be the new God Monarch." An Yiming's expression froze, and the corners of his eyes twitched a few times. He and Xinguang Huaiyu had been fighting openly and covertly all their lives. He did not expect that the latter would entrust the angel tribe to him at the moment of life and death. In the face of the survival of the race, personal honor and disgrace were nothing. The four patriarchs and Xinguang Huaiyu were slightly stronger than the rest. As they struggled to resist the bloodline stripping, they released their bloodline powers to suppress fiend celestial Qi. At this moment, many figures appeared high up in the sky, instantly filling up the entire world. Almost all of the Angel Clan's powerhouses had appeared. Everyone looked at the battle in the sky with shocked and puzzled expressions. Even among the angels, there weren't many who knew of Fiend God Qi. "Everyone, back off!" Darkrai roared as he released his power, signaling everyone to stay back. Although these people were strong, they posed no threat in front of Fiend God Qi. Boom! Bang bang bang! At this moment, the suppression on Qi Mo's real body weakened, and his huge body began to expand again. The net of holy light began to crumble under the impact of the majestic demonic energy, and it looked like it would not be able to hold out much longer. "Patriarch, what do we do?" Xinguang Huaiyu's eyes trembled as he looked at the skinny patriarch in despair, but the latter responded with the same despair. At this point, the skinny patriarch did not know what to do. What made them even more desperate was that as their bloodline was stripped, their strength was constantly declining. Bang! At this moment there was a loud explosion. The net of holy light finally could not withstand the impact of Qi Mo's real body, and it crumbled, turning into streams of light that dissipated. "This is bad." Xinguang Yu's eyes narrowed as his heart sank to the bottom of the abyss. She had been holding on to a glimmer of hope that Fiend God Qi would calm down after his power was almost depleted. But now she sensed that Fiend God Qi's power did not weaken at all, but became stronger. Roar! Qi Mo's real body roared like a demon from hell, and a huge amount of power surged like a monstrous wave, tumbling between heaven and earth. Suddenly, the palaces and houses at the lower end were impacted and collapsed. Dozens of palaces were turned into ruins in an instant, and dust waves hundreds of meters high were stirred up in the air. Angel die! City of angels, destroy! Qi Mo's real body roared like thunder, and the demonic energy around him soared into the sky. Waves of demonic energy surged and roared, and like a wild beast from the primordial times, it attacked in all directions, destroying everything in its path. The four patriarchs and Xinguang Huaiyu barely managed to resist, but when the demonic energy got close to them, the bloodline in their bodies instantly went berserk, and they were completely out of control. "Retreat!" The skinny patriarch bellowed, and forcefully flapped the 9 pairs of angel wings on his back, and retreated thousands of meters. Xinguang Huaiyu and the others also retreated, not daring to go near Mo. "Patriarch, this guy can actually devour our bloodline power." Xinguang Huaiyu steadied himself, and suddenly realized something, and exclaimed. In that instant, He felt that a lot of his bloodline power had been devoured, as if an invisible giant hand had viciously scratched his body. No wonder Chi Mo's power did not weaken after being suppressed by the net of holy light, but became much stronger. It turned out that he could devour power from the net of holy light. Everyone, leave the city of angels! The skinny patriarch growled, as if he did not hear Xinguang Huayu's words, and his face was extremely cold. Abandon the city! Xinguang Huayu's eyes flickered, and he immediately realized that the skinny patriarch was going to abandon the city. Abandon the city? Xinguang Huayu never expected that the patriarch would make such a decisive decision in an instant. The city of angels was the sacred city of the angelic tribe, the foundation of the tribe. Not only did the city contain many sacred grounds of the angelic tribe, but most importantly, it contained the heritage of the angelic tribe since ancient times, and was the symbol of the angelic tribe. Now, because of Nie Tian who had been demonized by Chi Mo, they had to abandon the city. The city of angels can be destroyed, but not the angelic tribe. The skinny patriarch growled once again in a sorrowful and tragic manner. Xinguang Huayu's eyes shuddered, and his face turned slightly moist before he yelled, "Relay the order of the Emperor, everyone is to leave the city of angels at once." The rumbling voice echoed in the ears of the crowd like a clap of thunder. Their emperor was asking them to abandon the city. The skinny patriarch was right, the city of angels could be destroyed, but not the angelic tribe. Chi Mo could no longer control the situation. If they stayed, they would only end up as sacrificial lambs to Chi Mo. The people of the city of angels were the elites and geniuses of the angelic tribe. If all of them died here, it would be a fatal blow to the angelic tribe. Even if the angelic tribe managed to survive, it would still decline, and the final outcome would be complete destruction. Therefore, the angelic tribe had to flee as far as possible. "Let's go!" After a brief silence, Anyeming let out a deep roar, before his figure moved, leaving a trail of light in the sky. Following this, the others followed suit. Countless figures soared into the sky and broke through the protective formation in the sky. The protective formation of the City of Angels did not hinder the members of the angelic tribe, allowing them to enter and leave the city freely. Chapter 4161. In the City of Angels, the Chi demons went berserk. Demonic energy filled the sky like dark clouds that covered the sky. Boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom, boom. Explosions kept coming from the ground. Palaces collapsed one after another, the ground cracked, and the sky wailed. It was a mess. The City of Angels is destroyed. The skinny patriarch looked at the scene in front of him with trembling eyes. He was the one who forced the first emperor to take over Nie Tian's body, which led to the current situation. Patriarch, demon god Qi is too powerful. We can't stop him. Xinguang Huayu came to the skinny patriarch's side and said in a low voice, "It's my fault that the angel clan is in such a disaster." The skinny patriarch beat his chest and stamped his feet in regret. Xinguang Huayu frowned. She didn't understand the relationship between demon god Qi and the skinny patriarch. But at this moment, demon god Qi punched out towards the escaping angel race beings with his fist. "Don't even think about it!" The skinny patriarch screamed. The 9 pairs of angel wings on his back flapped, and he turned into a ray of light that charged at the demon god Qi. In the next moment, he felt his body sink. It was as if a mountain was pressing down on his back, and he was unable to bear it. "Patriarch!" Xinguang Huayu's eyes trembled. He didn't hold back anymore. The blood in his body burned, and the 9 pairs of angel wings spread out. They were like sharp white blades that tore through the darkness. Bam! 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 At the same time, the other 3 patriarchs attacked as well. Beams of light descended and struck the black fist, forcefully shattering one of Fiend God Qi's arms. Roar! Demon God Qi howled at the sky in pain. The dark demonic energy filled the entire sky. The skinny patriarch finally got a chance to catch his breath. He retreated quickly. Demon God Chi's punch didn't kill him, but it heavily injured him. His body was covered in blood and his bones were broken. Tribulation, tribulation. The emaciated patriarch barely managed to stabilize his figure as he lamented endlessly. Old thing, the city of angels has yet to be destroyed. Nietion's consciousness has yet to be fully taken over. As long as we can get him to wake up, we'll be able to stop this calamity before us. Just then, a figure spoke up. His voice was calm but filled with rage. Who are you? The skinny old man exclaimed in shock when he saw a fat chinchilla standing behind him. It doesn't matter who I am. If you want to protect the city of angels, do as I say. Fat Cat scoffed coldly. Although she was trying her best to remain calm, the panic in her eyes could not be concealed. He already knew what had happened to Nietion. At the instant the thin patriarch approached Fiend Celestial Chi, he had seized the opportunity to charge out. The reason why Nietion lost control was because Fiend Celestial Chi was controlling his psyche. As for Fiend Celestial Chi's soul, it wasn't hidden when Nietion passed through the Angel's Gate. Instead, it had entered Nietion's consciousness through the protection of the Sovereign Spirit. The Sovereign Spirit was not only protecting the first Emperor's soul, but also a part of Fiend Celestial Chi's soul. The skinny old man and the rest definitely didn't know that the place that they worshipped had Fiend Celestial Chi's soul. If he had known this earlier, he wouldn't have allowed the first Emperor to take over Nietion's body. Concentrate all your power and attack his eyes. Fat Cat didn't waste any more time with the skinny old man and said directly. Whose eyes? The skinny old man was stunned. Was it Nietion's or Fiend Celestial Chi's? The two of them have merged into one. Now, Fiend Celestial Chi's eyes are Nietion's, Fat Cat said Nietion coldly. The skinny old man was confused. Why did they attack Nietion's eyes? Was there something strange about Nietion's eyes? However, he didn't have time to ask too many questions. He shouted to Xingguang Yu and the rest, attack Fiend Celestial Chi's eyes. Okay. Xingguang Yu frowned and answered right away. The blood chi around her burned crazily and holy light bloomed from her body. She was like a blazing white fireball that lit up the dark void around her. Holy light blade. She shouted and the light around her body condensed into a sharp blade. It drew a blazing white trail in the air and stabbed straight at Fiend Celestial Chi's eyes. Bang! The next moment, there was a loud, muffled sound. The holy light blade landed on Fiend Celestial Chi's left eye. However, it was blocked by the surrounding Fiend Celestial Chi and couldn't pierce through. Damn it! Xingguang Yu bellowed and burned her blood chi even more violently. However, she still couldn't pierce through the Fiend Celestial Chi barrier. Fiend Celestial Chi was under pressure. His shattered arm grew out again, and there was a black greatsword in his hand. He raised it high in an attempt to break the holy light blade. Help her! The skinny old man shouted crazily. He knew that this was the only chance for the angels. If they couldn't wake Nietion up, the city of angels would be destroyed. Although he didn't know where Fat Cat came from, he could only choose to believe in the former at this point in time. Boom! The three old men moved in unison and released the power of their bloodline to attack Xingguang Yu. Immediately, the holy light blade lit up and its power increased several times. Bam! At the same time, the black greatsword in Fiend Celestial Chi's hand fell and the holy light blade was broken. Fiend Celestial Chi was also sent flying and landed on the ground. With a loud bang, the earth trembled and a huge pit appeared in the ground. The ground around it cracked and a 1,000-meter-tall wave of dust was kicked up. At the same time, Xingguang Yu and the others were affected by the violent force. They were sent flying in the void and left a bloody trail in the air. The skinny old man's expression was trembling as he stared at Fiend Celestial Chi on the ground. A huge amount of Fiend Celestial Chi tumbled. Fiend Celestial Chi suddenly stood up like a mountain growing out of the ground. His entire body was filled with fiend celestial chi, as if he was going to devour the entire world. Oh no! This guy has become stronger again. The skinny old man exclaimed and quickly retreated. Fiend celestial chi's body was even bigger than before. The fiend celestial chi around him was extremely dense and violent. However, fiend celestial chi's left eye was hit by the holy light blade. A huge hole appeared as if the fiend celestial chi had been emptied. Fiend celestial chi surged in the hole, and it was slowly expanding to repair the left eye. Meanwhile, Nye Tian, who was inside fiend celestial chi's real body, blinked his left eye and he instantly became sober. He felt a tearing pain in his divine soul. Memories that did not belong to him kept flashing in his mind, and he felt like his consciousness was about to be separated. Fiend celestial statue. At a certain moment, Nye Tian suddenly realized something. He yelled and charged towards the huge fiend celestial statue in the distance. What is he trying to do? Xingguang Yuyu was taken aback by the sudden turn of events. The fiend celestial statue had existed since the City of Angels was built. It was built by the first emperor himself. The people of the Angel clan were puzzled. Why was there a statue of fiend celestial chi in the City of Angels? Even the past emperors did not understand why the first emperor built a statue for fiend celestial chi. Chapter 4162. High up in the sky above the City of Angels, countless angels stood there in a daze as they watched the Chi demon statue crumble. At that moment, the last hope in their hearts was shattered. The Chi demon god was too terrifying. Even the emperor and the 4 great ancestors could not fight against it. One should know that the current Nye Tian was only demonized by the Chi demon god. The power he possessed was not the Chi demon god's true power. Even so, the Chi demon's true form was already so terrifying. It was unimaginable how terrifying the real Chi demon god would be. It's over. Everything is over. The skinny great ancestor watched as the demon god collapsed. His body went limp. He did not expect that his moment of selfishness would bring disaster to the angel tribe. Until now, he did not understand what was happening before his eyes. Xingguang Yuyu and the other 3 great ancestors were in despair. The City of Angels, the foundation of the angel tribe, was destroyed just like that. How could they not be heartbroken? Old thing, look closely. What did your first emperor leave behind in the demon god statue? Suddenly, Fat Cat's voice entered the skinny great ancestor's ears. The latter was nervous and excited at the same time. It was obvious that she was anticipating something. The skinny great ancestor's heart skipped a beat. His aged and decaying eyes flickered. Could it be that the first angel left some kind of incredible power in the demon god statue? The demon god statue had stood in the City of Angels for close to 10 million years, but no one knew why it existed. The first emperor must have had an extraordinary purpose for erecting the demon god statue. Boom! Just as the skinny great ancestor was in shock, a ball of holy light shot out from the crumbling demon god statue. It drew a blinding trail in the sky like a sword of hope that tore through the darkness and lit up the sky. What's that? Everyone was shocked and looked at the holy light in the sky. The ball of light was like a whirlpool of light. It spun and flickered in the sky. White halos surged out and spread out like ripples, covering the sky and the ground. At this moment, all the angels felt a holy aura pervading the air, causing them to involuntarily feel a sense of worship. Their bloodline power actually became more active, and there were signs of it growing stronger. This ball of light contains a terrifying power. The skinny old ancestor was so shocked that he stuttered. As expected, the first emperor didn't lie to me. Beside him, the fat cat looked at the vortex and chuckled in excitement. The skinny old man was taken aback. Could it be that the little fat cat had seen the first emperor before? He was in existence from the same era as the first emperor? At this moment, he began to wonder where this little fat cat came from. Back when he attacked Fiend Celestial Chi, He was too nervous. He did not notice Fat Cat at all. Roar! Just then, Fiend Celestial Chi stared at the light vortex in anger. He roared and demonic energy was released from his body. It was as if thousands of beasts were roaring and swore to devour the world. Inside Fiend Celestial Chi's body, Nie Tion's left eye returned to darkness. His consciousness was once again suppressed. However, it was enough for him to destroy the Fiend Celestial statue. What happened next was up to the first Emperor. Boom! At this moment, the ball of white light suddenly exploded, and a dazzling light bloomed like the sun, spreading in all directions. Everyone watched the shocking scene and their expressions became sluggish. Then, an even more shocking scene appeared. The ball of light grew brighter and more blinding. In the end, people could not look at it directly. In an instant, the blinding light enveloped the entire city of angels. The entire city seemed to be bathed in holy light. Bang! Just then, Fiend Celestial Chi was infuriated. He slashed down with his black greatsword. Black sword shadows appeared and forcefully shattered the light barrier in the sky. The light dissipated and an enormous figure appeared. It was as majestic as a mountain and shone brightly. His figure was over 10,000 meters tall and was not inferior to Fiend Celestial Chi. His body was as white as snow and a holy aura flowed around him. However, his face was hideous and terrifying. He had a giant mouth that seemed to be able to devour everything. On top of his head were two demonic horns. This is... When the skinny ancestor saw the enormous figure clearly, his eyes trembled. His heart that had just given birth to a glimmer of hope was completely cold. He yelled, "Fiend Celestial Chi, that's right." The enormous figure was exactly the same as Fiend Celestial Chi's real body. The only difference was that Fiend Celestial Chi's real body was black and surged with demonic energy. That figure was white and surrounded by holy light. This figure was clearly a white Fiend Celestial Chi. What was going on? The skinny ancestor was completely confused. There was only shock and fear left in his heart. If this white Fiend Celestial Chi also wanted to destroy the city of angels, then it would be terrible. Roar! At that moment, the dark Fiend Celestial Chi let out a wild roar and move. Demonic energy that was as vast as the mountains and the seas erupted and pressed down on the white Fiend Celestial Chi. The white Fiend Celestial Chi had an aura that he hated the most. It drove him crazy and made him want to destroy it at all costs. Whoosh! 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 Almost at the same time, the white Fiend Celestial Chi moved as well. Angel's wings grew out from his back and spread out in pairs. Holy light shone brightly in the void. Rays of blinding light condensed into thousands of blades of holy light that slammed down on the dark Fiend Celestial Chi. The skinny ancestor's heart skipped a beat when he saw this. He felt like he was suffocating. The others were equally shocked. Many of them had their mouths wide open but could not make a sound. If they did not see it with their own eyes, they would not believe that the dark Fiend Celestial Chi had grown an angel's wings. 10. Xingguang Yu's eyes were trembling and his teeth were chattering. He wanted to say something but could not say a word. He could not believe his eyes. The white Fiend Celestial Chi had 10 pairs of angel's wings on his back. 10 pairs of angel's wings. Was that even possible? In the history of the Angel Clan, only one person had ever condensed 10 pairs of angel's wings. That person was the first emperor. Could it be that the white Fiend Celestial Chi before them was the first emperor? But was that even possible? The first emperor of the Angel Clan, the most loyal protector of the Angel Clan, had turned into the Angel Clan's mortal enemy. It sounded too unbelievable and unbelievable. Boom! Hiss hiss hiss. At that moment, the black and white Fiend Celestial Chi clashed for the first time. Endless holy light collided with the dark sword shadow and tore it apart like it was crushing dry weeds. Then, endless blades of holy light descended and bombarded the demonic aura around the dark Fiend Celestial Chi. The sky changed color and the earth shook as if it was the end of the world. Then, a shocking scene happened. The blades of holy light penetrated the demonic aura barrier and stabbed into the dark fiend Celestial Chi's body. First Emperor, you've merged with the power of my bloodline. The dark fiend Celestial Chi suddenly realized something and roared crazily. However, he could not stop the blades of holy light. His body began to tear apart. The demonic aura dissipated and his body kept shrinking. Chapter 41-63. High up in the sky, the two Chi demon gods fought to the death, one black and one white. It was a battle between darkness and light. Under the suppression of the endless blades of holy light, the dark Chi demon god gradually lost the upper hand. The demonic Chi around it gradually disappeared, and the light shone brightly. The white Chi demon god was the transformation of the first emperor. He merged with the power of the Chi demon god's bloodline and used it to suppress the Chi demon god. That white Chi demon god is the first emperor. The skinny ancestral patriarch suddenly realized and couldn't help but shout. But he still looked very strange. Why was the first emperor able to form the Chi demon real body? It was too strange. At that moment, the 10 pairs of angel wings on the white Chi demon god's back shook the sky. Between the wings, a sky full of holy light blades were released. Its speed and power increased by several times. Everywhere it passed, the void was forcefully torn apart. The strength of space and time in a top sacred world was enough to withstand a battle between peak sky martial saint ancestors. The white Chi demon god tore apart the void, which meant that its combat power had surpassed peak sky martial saint ancestors. Roar! Enduring the fiercer attacks of the holy light blades, the dark Chi demon god was enraged. It roared into the sky. Then, Nye Tion's blood Chi burst out and merged with the demonic Chi around it. Suddenly, demonic waves surged into the sky. It was like a boundless beast in the sea of darkness. Boom! Then, the holy light attacked the demonic Chi. The sky changed color and the earth turned upside down. It was like the end of the world. Good and evil clashed, light and darkness clashed. The world fell into chaos. The skinny ancestral patriarch and the others were affected by the violent power and retreated. The surrounding martial artists, who didn't manage to escape in time, were sucked into the violent waves and were instantly crushed. The people who had escaped to the edge looked at the scene in front of them in shock. The shock in their hearts was indescribable. They couldn't imagine how strong one had to be able to burst out such a terrifying power in an instant. Nye Tion, you must hold on. Fat Cat stood on the skinny ancestral patriarch's shoulder. Her eyes were trembling and she was very nervous. Fiend Celestial Chi's burning of his blood Chi caused immense pressure on Nye Tion's martial body. It would be terrible if his martial Tao foundation was damaged. In the sky, darkness and light collided, condensing into a huge mushroom-shaped air mass. From afar, it looked like a terrifying fireball emitting thick black smoke. After a long time, the fireball exploded with a bang, and it transformed into countless waves of air that spread madly in all directions. Everywhere it passed, space distorted, and turbid waves surged into the sky. On the ground, the city of angels, which was already in ruins, was hit by the raging waves. Billowing waves of dust that were thousands of meters tall were stirred up. The majestic momentum was like a landslide or tsunami. Get out of the way! The skinny old man roared and retreated tens of thousands of meters. If one was swept into such a terrifying wave of dust, even if they didn't die, they would still lose a layer of skin. The others retreated as well. Many of them retreated to the outer perimeter of the city of angels. The sky was covered in filth, and the energy was extremely chaotic. Turbid waves suffused the air, and everywhere they passed was a mess. The skinny old man and company were completely speechless when they saw the scene in front of them. This was the first time they had seen such a terrifying battle scene. It had completely overturned their understanding of the peak of the martial Tao. Furthermore, Demon God Chi and the First Emperor were not in their complete states, yet they still possessed such power. If the two of them were in their peak states, how terrifying would they be? Only then did they understand how terrifying the first Emperor's enemies were. After a long, long time, the dust in the sky began to disperse, and the void gradually cleared up. The turbid waves dispersed, and two figures appeared high in the sky. One was a holy phantom that was as white as day, and the other was a blood-soaked body that surged with demonic aura. This is... The skinny old man looked at the phantom of the holy world, and his eyes trembled. Instantly, tears streamed down his face as he shouted in a daze, "Lord First Emperor." Xinguang Huaiyu was similarly stunned. Although the phantom of the holy world was a little blurry, he could tell from the outline that it was indeed the first emperor. The first emperor had protected the angels his entire life, and he was revered like a god by his people. Every angel knew what he looked like. Lord First Generation Emperor. That's the Lord First Generation Emperor. At this moment, someone reacted and shouted. Then, he knelt down. When the others saw this, they also knelt down. However, the holy phantom remained unmoved, as though he had not seen anything. His eyes stared intently at the blood-soaked body. The blood-soaked body was none other than Nie Tian, who was also demon god Qi. First Emperor, I never expected that you would still be able to suppress me after your death. Nie Tian's body surged with demonic aura, but the aura of darkness was constantly weakening. His eyes were like an abyss as he said in a deep voice, "If not for the eternal light in this kid's body, I would not have lost this battle." The holy phantom frowned slightly, but he did not speak. Heh. Then, Nie Tian chuckled, "But in this battle, I did not lose to you, I lost to myself." Who would have thought that the first sovereign emperor of the angel race would actually merge with the bloodline power of the Qi demon god? How ironic is this? The holy phantom remained silent. His eyes were moving around slowly, as if he was waiting for something. "First Emperor, I don't have much time left. Don't you want to say anything?" Nie Tian's lips curled up and he spoke coldly. The holy phantom hesitated. Suddenly, his eyes flickered and he said, "He will be your end." His voice was calm. There was no fluctuation and no emotion. "This young man..." Nie Tian laughed. Immediately afterwards, the smile on his face grew even more sinister as he said, "I'm indeed apprehensive of the power inside of him. But, do you think I will leave a thread alive?" Eyebrows furrowed, the pure and holy figure seemed to realize something. Her expression flickered as she morphed into a streak of light that shot directly towards Nie Tian. Too late. Nie Tian's lips twitched and he smiled coldly. Then, he spread his arms and laughed maniacally. "I sure want to see if the heavens will you choose can withstand my extreme demonic prohibition." Bang! Bang! As soon as he spoke, Nie Tian's body suddenly trembled. Then, there were sounds of blood exploding. Fat Cat saw this from afar and immediately realized what was going on. He yelled, "Save him!" In an instant, he realized that demon god Qi was controlling Nie Tian's body to explode his spiritual meridians. Almost at the same time, the holy phantom turned into a ray of light and shot towards Nie Tian's forehead. But, he was still too late. The demonic aura around Nie Tian dissipated instantly. His dark eyes regained their clarity and his divine sense became clear for a moment. Then, he fainted again. Like a rock, he fell straight to the ground. At that moment, the shriveled patriarch snapped to his senses and dashed out to catch Nie Tian in his arms. "How is he?" Fat Cat arrived and asked nervously as he looked at Nie Tian who was covered in blood. Xinguang Huaiyu and the rest arrived too. They looked at the skinny elder ancestor anxiously. The skinny elder ancestor used his divine sense to check on Nie Tian. His face turned ugly, and he said in a deep voice, "All his meridians, 9 spiritual meridians, and 5 viscera and 6 bowels have been shattered." Chapter 4164. Angel's Blood Wings. Fat Cat's eyes danced with flames as he stared at the skinny patriarch. Nie Tian was severely injured. His meridians, 9 vital meridians, 5 viscera and 6 bowels, and even other organs and tissues had been shattered. Demon god Qi had used his last bit of consciousness to severely injure Nie Tian with the extreme demonic seal at the last moment. If Nie Tian's martial body had been slightly weaker, he would have been a corpse by now. However, even if his martial body was far superior to other cultivators of the same level, he would not be able to hold on for long under the impact of the extreme demonic seal. Fat Cat estimated that if Nie Tian did not receive treatment, he would be able to hold on for an hour at most. The strangest thing was that when he tried to sense Nie Tian, he could not sense any soul aura at all. Generally speaking, when a cultivator died, even if their martial body's blood qi weakened, their soul aura would still exist. However, there was no soul aura on Nie Tian. It was too strange. Nie Tian's current situation was critical, and he needed a powerful life force to help him maintain his aura. Therefore, Fat Cat immediately thought of the angel's blood wings. Legend had it that the angel's blood wings were left behind by an ancient angel king. They contained the power of the angel king's bloodline and had the greatest life force. It might be able to save Nie Tian. When the skinny patriarch heard the words angel's blood wings, his old face froze and he hesitated. The angel's blood wings were the most sacred item of the angel race. How could he use it on an outsider? Although Nie Tian was a heaven's limit, he had not been acknowledged by the entire angel race. What was more troublesome was that Nie Tian had transformed into demon god Qi and nearly destroyed the entire angel city. The skinny patriarch knew that what had happened earlier was due to his evil intentions. However, in the eyes of the rest of the angel race, Nie Tian was the culprit behind the destruction of Angel City. Under such circumstances, even if he agreed to use the angel's blood wings on Nie Tian, it would be useless. The angel blood wings were the most sacred objects of the angel race. The entire angel race had to agree before they could be used. Would the people of the angel tribe use the most sacred object of their tribe on a person who had just destroyed their holy city? What about you? Fat Cat's expression darkened as she turned to look at Xingguang Huaiyu. The angel's blood wings are of great importance. It's not something I can decide alone. Xingguang Huaiyu frowned and said solemnly. Then how can I decide? Fat Cat was very angry and said, Nie Tian just saved the angels. Are you going to watch him die? Save the angels? Before Xingguang Huaiyu could speak, another figure appeared. It was the great elder, An Yeming. He stared at Fat Cat with a pair of sinister eyes and sneered. In my opinion, he's the one who brought disaster to the angel tribe. If it wasn't for him, how could Angel's Gate have been destroyed? How could demon god Qi have escaped? And the city of angels? If he had transformed into demon god Qi, how could he have become like this? This kid is a great sinner of our angel tribe. He deserves to be killed. He spoke each word forcefully and loudly, expressing the injustice in his heart. Xingguang Huaiyu looked at An Yeming with a slight frown. The latter did not have a good impression of Nie Tian to begin with. Now that something like this had happened, it was not strange for him to have such a reaction. It's one thing for Nie Tian to transform into demon god Qi. You should ask your 4 patriarchs. Fat Cat's expression was gloomy and cold. And Yeming's expression froze and he looked at the skinny patriarch. The latter's expression was ugly and he was avoiding eye contact. Patriarch, what's going on? Xingguang Huaiyu sensed that something was wrong. Her pretty face turned cold and she asked. She had always thought that it was strange. How could Nie Tian suddenly transform into demon god Qi? There must be a reason behind it. Sigh. Seeing that he could not hide it anymore, the skinny patriarch heaved a long sigh and explained everything. In the end, he said, I don't understand either. Why did he suddenly transform into demon god Qi? Then, he looked at Fat Cat. The latter clearly knew what was going on. Fat Cat smiled cold and said, Old man, you wanted the first emperor to take over Nie Tian's body. But you didn't know that the divine soul in the sovereign spirit protection is not the first emperor's divine soul, but demon god Qi's divine soul. How is that possible? The skinny patriarch's eyes trembled and he cried out in shock. The sovereign spirit protection that they had been worshipping for generations turned out to be demon god Qi's divine soul. It was unbelievable. Moreover, the sovereign spirit protection clearly contained the first emperor's divine soul. Little Fat Cat sneered once again and said, "The Dharch soul protection does have the power of an early Empyrean lord's soul. However, it is not his soul. Instead, it is a seal condensed from his soul. It is used to suppress fiend god Qi's soul. You wanted the first emperor to take over Nye Tian's body. But you unintentionally broke the divine soul seal and released demon god Qi's divine soul. In the end, it caused Nye Tian to become demon god Qi. Do you think Nye Tian should take the blame for this?" The skinny patriarch's old face froze and he was speechless. Then what about the white demon god Qi in the demon god statue? At this moment, Patriarch Three-Eyed looked at Fat Cat and asked in a deep voice. Fat Cat's eyes darkened and she said, "The first emperor's divine soul was not in the sovereign spirit protection, but in the demon god statue. When Nye Tian was awake, he knocked down the demon god statue to release the first emperor's divine soul." Patriarch Three-Eyed was also stunned and couldn't believe it. The divine soul in the sovereign spirit protection was demon god Qi, and the divine soul in the demon god statue was the first emperor. What was going on? Why did the first emperor make such an arrangement? It was too strange. Could it be that the first emperor really did merge his divine soul with demon god Qi's bloodline power, just like what demon god Qi said? Xinguang Huaiyu asked in a deep voice. Yes. Fat Cat nodded and said, "I'm guessing that after the first emperor defeated demon god Qi, he separated his divine soul and bloodline power and divided his divine soul into two. Half of his divine soul was imprisoned in the Angel Gate and the other half was imprisoned in the sovereign spirit protection. The first emperor hid his divine soul in the demon god statue. Then, he slowly merged his divine soul with demon god Qi's bloodline power." Little Fat Cat, this is only your side of the story. Why would the first emperor do such a thing? Darkrai had a vague idea of what was going on, but he was still unwilling to accept it. That's because the first emperor already knew that demon god Qi couldn't be suppressed and that he would break out of his shackles one day. Therefore, I made arrangements in the demonic god statue in advance, just for this moment. As the Fat Cat spoke, he looked coldly at the skinny patriarch and said angrily, "But he would never have thought that his descendants would. Our clansmen actually want him to possess the heaven's limit he has chosen." The skinny old man's expression was unsightly, but he didn't say anything. Is that really the case? Xinguang Huaiyu's expression was a little sluggish, unable to accept it for a moment. The Fat Cat said with a cold and solemn expression, "Nye Tian is the one chosen by the first emperor. He is the only one who can end the disaster of demon god Qi. If you watch him die and do nothing, you will be digging your own grave for the angel race." The skinny progenitor and the others were startled and fell silent. To save or not to save, the life and death decision that would decide the fate of the angel race lay before them. Chapter 4165. Xinguang Huaiyu was the first to make a decision. Her eyes were as cold as ice, and she was very determined. She could tell that Nye Tian was different. She had a feeling that Nye Tian was the one who could end the demonic god Qi. Anya Ming glanced at Xinguang Huaiyu and then at the emaciated patriarch. He was obviously waiting for the patriarch's decision. Save him. The emaciated patriarch's eyes seemed to be burning with flames as he uttered the word. The other three patriarchs' expressions froze at the same time. They were obviously surprised by the emaciated patriarch's decision, but they didn't say anything and just nodded silently. They regarded the emaciated patriarch as their leader. They would follow his decision regardless of whether it was right or wrong. Following that, the group of Supreme Elders also expressed their support for saving Nye Tian. On Ye Ming's face was gloomy. He knew that he couldn't save the situation, so he could only nod solemnly. In fact, he was biased against Nye Tian because the latter was an outsider. He was the firmest protector of the Angel clan, and his loyalty was even firmer than that of Xingguang Huaiyu. Xingguang Huaiyu could accept an outsider as a heaven's force, but he couldn't. Great Elder, this old man knows that you are unwilling in your heart, but this matter concerns the survival of my Angel clan. The emaciated patriarch looked at An Yiming and said, "The first emperor also said that Nye Tian will be the one to end the demonic god Qi. We've seen the demonic god Qi's power with our own eyes. The Angel clan can't resist him. Nye Tian is our only hope." "I understand." An Yiming nodded solemnly and looked at Nye Tian deeply. He felt a sense of desolation. He understood it, but he had to accept it. "Great Elder, this is an emergency. Please evacuate the remaining people in the City of Angels and inform the outside world that the City of Angels is temporarily closed. No one is allowed to enter," Xingguang Huaiyu said with a slight nod. An Yiming's gaze swept across the crowd in the distance, and he nodded again. The four patriarchs and the emperor had already decided to use the angel's blood wings on Nye Tian without the approval of the entire Angel clan. Given the current situation, that was all they could do. Nye Tian was on the verge of death. If he still needed the consent of the entire Angel clan, who knew how long it would take? Darkrai and the other great elders began to disperse the crowd. Xingguang Huaiyu and the four patriarchs took Nye Tian to the Blood Wing Pagoda, where the Blood Angel wings were kept. The Bloodwing Tower was located in the Bloodwing Mountain Range, at the northwestern edge of the City of Angels. It was located in a hidden valley, Bloodwing Valley. Xingguang Huaiyu and the others soon arrived at the outskirts of Bloodwing Valley. Even before entering the valley, they could already feel a powerful pressure. Bloodwing Valley was very well hidden. At the same time, the entire valley was protected by powerful restrictive arrays and 4 Bloodwing Guardians. The 4 Bloodwing Guardians appeared at the same time. Seeing that it was Xingguang Huaiyu and the others, they relaxed their guard. However, they did not directly let Xingguang Huaiyu and the others into the valley, because even the Emperor and the 4 great ancestors did not have the right to enter and leave the valley. In order to enter Bloodwing Valley, one had to obtain the Angelic Edict. As for the Angel Edict, not only did it require the agreement of the Emperor Lord, the 4 Patriarchs, and the 9 Supreme Elders, but it also required the approval of the Angel Tribe's Patriarch, as well as the approval of the Angel Tribe's many inner and outer elders. Without the Angelic Edict, even the Emperor and the 4 Patriarchs were not allowed to enter Bloodwing Valley. Xingguang Huaiyu did not beat around the bush and directly explained the situation. Finally, he said, "Guardians, this has happened too suddenly. This Emperor is unable to obtain the Angelic Edict. I ask that you make an exception." Emperor, 4 Patriarchs. One of the Bloodwing Guardians stepped forward and said, "The Blood Angel Wings are our tribe's most sacred treasure. Throughout history, we have required the Angelic Edict to enter Bloodwing Valley. Even if the Emperor and the 4 Patriarchs are here, they cannot represent the will of the entire Angel tribe. Please forgive us for not allowing you in." Xingguang Huaiyu frowned. She was not the least bit surprised by such a response. The Bloodwing Guardians had a very special status in the Angel tribe. They did not listen to anyone but the Angelic Edict. Without the Angelic Edict, it was impossible for them to enter. Nye Tian's situation was urgent, so Xingguang Huaiyu did not dare to delay and said, "The 4 of you, this concerns the survival of the Angel tribe. Today, you have to enter even if you don't want to." As soon as she finished speaking, her aura surged and exploded like a landslide. Suddenly, the void around her roared. However, the next moment, an oppressive force came from the void and forcefully weakened Xingguang Huaiyu's aura by more than half. The Bloodwing Guardian's expression changed and she asked Xingguang Huaiyu coldly, Lord Emperor, do you want to force your way into Bloodwing Valley? For the sake of the angel tribe, I can only offend you. Her pretty face turned cold. She took a step forward but was suppressed by an invisible force that made her feel suffocated. What's going on? She was shocked, and her expression changed. Although she had been injured before, her current strength was stronger than that of a peak sky martial arts saint ancestor. How could she be suppressed by the invisible force in the void? Lord Emperor, this is Bloodwing Valley. Even if you are the Emperor, you have to be suppressed by the Bloodwing restriction spell, the Bloodwing Guardian said, cold and gloomy. Bloodwing Valley had always been a forbidden area of the Angel tribe. Other than the Bloodwing Guardians, no one could enter and leave at will, not even the Emperor. The Bloodwing Valley's restriction spell was set up by the Angel Lord before ancient times. Under the continuous improvement of the Bloodwing Guardians, it did not weaken at all. Instead, it became stronger and stronger. The Bloodwing Guardians were not restricted by the Emperor. The new Guardian was appointed by the previous generation of Guardians. More importantly, the Bloodwing Guardians had an extremely high privilege, which was to absorb the power of the Angel Bloodwing. Therefore, the Bloodwing Guardians of each generation were as strong as the Emperor and the Angel Lord. At this moment, even without the Bloodwing restriction spell and Xingguang Huaiyu was not injured, she would not be able to enter Bloodwing Valley. Damn it! Xingguang Huaiyu shouted. Then, he forcibly reversed his blood meridians and attacked the restriction spell. Boom! Suddenly, the void around them shook. Xingguang Huaiyu's body trembled and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Emperor! Ancestor Three-Eyed stepped forward and supported Xingguang Huaiyu. You four, I know you have a mission, but this person is related to the survival of the Angel tribe. If he dies, the Angel tribe will not be able to escape the disaster. The skinny ancestor frowned and said emotionally. Then, he took a step forward and knelt in front of the four Bloodwing Guardians. In front of the Wing Protector, he said, "This old man begs you to let us through." This. The four Bloodwing Guardians obviously did not expect the skinny ancestor to kneel to them. They were stunned for a moment. Was this silver-haired martial artist in front of them really that important? Important enough for the Emperor to enter Bloodwing Valley and for the ancestor to kneel and beg. Nia Tian. At this moment, Fat Cat seemed to sense something and suddenly shouted. Chapter 4166. Outside the Bloodwing Valley, Nia Tian's body suddenly underwent an unexpected change. His entire body was enveloped by numerous fine runes that resembled bloodlines. Moreover, the power of heaven and earth had also changed, and was unceasingly collapsing towards him. What's going on? The sudden turn of events caused the Bloodwing Guardian to be stunned for a moment, before letting out a strange cry and looking at Nia Tian with incomparable shock. Xingguang Huaiyu and the emaciated ancestor were also stunned. The shock in their hearts was written all over their faces. The emaciated ancestor had even forgotten that he was still kneeling on the ground. What was going on? How could the momentum of the world suddenly change? And what were those blood-red runes? Outside the Bloodwing Valley, there was not only a powerful formation protecting it, but there was also the Bloodwing restriction, so the momentum of the world was very stable. Even an expert like Xingguang Huaiyu had been suppressed by the Bloodwing restriction. One could imagine how strong the momentum of the world was. Nia Tian was only the Tianyi saint. How could he change the momentum of the world? At this time, Three-Eyed Ancestor opened his third eye and immediately discovered that the blood-red runes were actually condensed from extremely dense and small blood-red wings. This was the power of the angelic ruler's bloodline. He's not changing the momentum of the world, but the power of the Bloodwing restriction. Three-Eyed Ancestor let out a strange cry. He's absorbing the power of the Bloodwing restriction. How is this possible? The Bloodwing Protector cried out again, unable to believe what he was seeing. Then, he waved his hand in the air, and a ball of light appeared, reflecting everything like a lens. He saw that outside of Nye Tian's body, blood-red runes crisscrossed like a bloody net. It was extremely complicated, and the momentum of the world was constantly tilting, pressing down on Nye Tian's body. How can this be? The Bloodwing Protector couldn't believe what he was seeing. The Bloodwing restriction had been left behind by the angelic ruler and was extremely powerful. How could Nye Tian absorb its power? With Nye Tian's strength, any random restriction's power would be enough to take his life. But he had absorbed so many runes and was completely fine. It was too strange. What he saw in front of him was simply impossible. Fat Cat looked at Nye Tian nervously. He did not know what had happened to Nye Tian, nor did he know if those blood wing runes were good or bad for Nye Tian. However, Nye Tian was already like this. How bad could he be? Moreover, he discovered that as those blood wing runes continuously surged into Nye Tian's body, Nye Tian's aura actually became slightly stronger. Could it be that the blood wing runes could heal Nye Tian? This is impossible, absolutely impossible. A moment later, the Blood Wing Protector shouted again. He felt that the Blood Wing restriction was constantly weakening. The power of heaven and earth was also collapsing. The entire Blood Wing Valley was swaying as if it was about to collapse. Nye Tian was only Saint Tianyi. How could his martial body withstand so much restriction power? I understand. At that moment, Old Ancestor Three-Eyed suddenly let out a strange cry. His face was filled with excitement as he shouted, "I know what's going on!" Old Ancestor, what did you discover? Xingguang Huaiyu looked at Old Ancestor Three-Eyed with excitement. It's not Nye Tian who is absorbing the blood wing restriction. It's another type of restriction power in his body. Old Ancestor Three-Eyed took a deep breath and forced himself to calm down. He said, "It's the power of the extreme demonic restriction." Extreme demonic restriction. Upon hearing these words, everyone was stunned. Then, they recalled that the Qi Fiend God had indeed mentioned such a power and used such a method to completely destroy Nye Tian. The extreme demonic restriction doesn't just want to destroy Nye Tian's martial body, it also wants to destroy his divine soul, cutting off his chance of being reborn. Old Ancestor Three-Eyed said in a deep voice, "The power of the extreme demonic restriction is no weaker than the blood wing restriction. The two types of restriction power are suppressing each other in Nye Tian's body. It's a delicate balance, which is why Nye Tian is barely able to endure it." This. Xingguang Huaiyu's pretty face froze. She was momentarily speechless. Nye Tian was a heaven's limit chosen by the first emperor. Demon God Qi felt threatened by Nye Tian, so he didn't hesitate to destroy Nye Tian's martial body and divine soul with the extreme demonic restriction so that Nye Tian wouldn't even have the chance to be reborn. Such a method is indeed ruthless. Little Fat Cat frowned deep in thought. No wonder Nye Tian's aura became stronger. It turned out that the blood wing restriction had suppressed the power of the extreme demonic restriction. At that moment, the number of blood wing runes around Nye Tian's body increased. They became denser and denser, forming a layer of blood mist that enveloped his entire body. It looked extremely strange. Old Ancestor, since the blood wing restriction has suppressed the extreme demonic restriction, does that mean that Nye Tian is saved? Xingguang Huaiyu looked at Old Ancestor Three-Eyed and asked anxiously. The skinny Old Ancestor also stood up and looked at Old Ancestor Three-Eyed with anticipation. Old Ancestor Three-Eyed did not speak. He stared at Nye Tian and carefully sensed. No one dared to speak. They could only stand to the side and wait quietly. After a long time, Old Ancestor Three-Eyed let out a long breath. His face was pale and his forehead was covered with fine beads of sweat. He carefully sensed Nye Tian's body, down to the minute meridians. He discovered something extraordinary. "Old Ancestor, how is it?" Xingguang Huaiyu asked anxiously. "Nye Tian is being ravaged by the extreme demonic restriction. His meridians, bones, and even flesh are almost in a state of destruction." Old Ancestor Three-Eyed took a deep breath and said, although the blood wing restriction has suppressed the power of the extreme demonic restriction, the two forces are only maintaining a dangerous balance. Under such circumstances, Nye Tion's martial physique cannot be restored. Moreover, the two forces are not stable. Once the balance is broken, Nye Tion will die for sure. Then what should we do? The skinny old ancestor's eyes trembled and he said, Did you discover something? Quickly tell us. Yes. Old Ancestor Three-Eyed nodded and said, Nye Tion is heavily injured. There is only one way to save him. What is it? Xingguang Huayu's eyes burned with excitement. Reconstruct the martial physique. Old Ancestor Three-Eyed's eyes lit up and his voice was filled with pleasant surprise. Reconstruct the martial body? Everyone was stunned for a moment. Nye Tion's martial physique was still intact and he was not a divine soul. How could he reconstruct the martial physique? In fact, I have already sensed that Nye Tion's meridians, bones, and flesh are emitting an extremely strong aura of life. This is the potential of a martial physique that can only be displayed by a cultivator with an extremely tenacious desire to live. Old Ancestor Three-Eyed nodded and looked at Nye Tion and said, Look, what does Nye Tion look like now that he's enveloped by those blood wings? Like. Xingguang Huayu looked at Nye Tion. The bloody mist around the latter's body was getting thicker and thicker until it was almost solid. He looked like a humanoid blood cocoon. He suddenly came to a realization and shouted, like a silkworm cocoon. Everyone's eyes trembled and they immediately came to a realization. Wasn't Nye Tion just a silkworm cocoon shrouded in the bloody mist? That's right. Old Ancestor Three-Eyed nodded and said, Nye Tion's current state shows that he is eager to reconstruct his martial physique. It's like a phoenix undergoing nirvana and a silkworm turning into a butterfly. The reason why he could take the initiative to absorb the power of the blood wing restriction was because he had a strong desire to live. He can feel the possibility of survival. Chapter 4167. The most talented cultivator since the establishment of martial arts. Patriarch Three-Eyed's eyes were trembling. That kind of heat and excitement seemed to want to ignite his blood, making him feel an uncontrollable surge of hot blood. The others were shocked, but their eyes were filled with excitement and impulsiveness. It would be too terrifying if they could produce the most talented cultivator since the establishment of martial arts. Third brother, how confident are you in reconstructing his martial body? After a while, the skinny old ancestor calmed down a little and spoke in a deep voice. Although he was trying his best to remain calm, his voice was trembling uncontrollably. Old Ancestor Three-Eyed's eyes turned dull. He glanced at Nye Tion and sighed. His martial body is too heavily injured and can't be repaired. The chances of success are close to zero if we try to reconstruct it on top of his original martial body. The skinny ancestor frowned his eyebrows and said, Why don't we extract his soul and reconstruct a new martial body for him? Nye Tion was too heavily injured. Under such circumstances, it was better to reconstruct a new martial body than to reconstruct his original martial body. No. Old Ancestor Three-Eyed shook his head and said, His soul is imprisoned by the extreme demonic seal and can't be extracted from his martial body. What's more troublesome is that if he destroys his martial body, his soul will be destroyed as well. If that happens, he'll completely disappear from this world. Everyone's expressions changed when they heard the skinny old ancestor's words. They fell into silence. It seemed that they had fallen into a predicament. They had to reconstruct Nye Tion's martial body on top of his original martial body, but the chances of success were extremely low. His martial body is severely injured. The two restrictive powers in his body are currently fighting against each other, which is harmful to his martial body. The blood-winged guardian stood up and said, But the blood-winged restriction is the bloodline power left behind by the angelic ruler. It contains an extremely powerful life force. This is also the reason why he's still alive. If we can maintain the balance between the blood-winged restriction and the extreme demonic seal, and use the powerful life force of the angelic blood wings to support his vital signs, then the chances of reconstructing his martial body will undoubtedly increase greatly. As he spoke, his gaze swept across the crowd, and there was a strange light in his eyes. The skinny patriarch was stunned and didn't react for a moment. From what the blood wing protector said, did it agree to let Nye Tian use the angel's blood wings? The blood wings restriction has been absorbed by him. If you insist on breaking through, we won't be able to stop you. The blood wing protector, of course, knew what everyone was thinking. He smiled bitterly and said, since the blood wing restriction spell chose him, perhaps this is the will of the heavens. The skinny ancestral patriarch and the others were silent. Indeed, in order to save Nye Tian, they would still forcibly seize the angel blood wings. Without the blood wings restriction, the 4 blood wing guardians would not be a match for the 4 patriarchs. Rather than waiting for war to break out, it was better to take the initiative to make a choice. Even with the support of the angel's blood wings, the chances of successfully rebuilding the martial body are slim. However, old ancestor Three-Eyed shook his head and said, Nye Tian is already under great pressure. His martial body is on the verge of collapse. Furthermore, the 2 restrictions are extremely difficult to balance. If anything goes wrong, he will be crushed to death. Yes. The blood wing protector nodded and said, although the angel's blood wings have a strong life force, they also have a certain degree of pressure on martial artists. Under such circumstances, it is difficult for him to bear the pressure of the angel's blood wings. Then what should we do? Xingguang Huaiyu frowned and her nerves tensed up. At this moment, Fat Cat suddenly spoke. Her eyes were like gems, shining with a strange light. What if we can find someone to bear the pressure of the angel's blood wings for him? You mean to build a formation? With Patriarch Three-Eyed's intelligence, he immediately realized what was going on. But then, his face darkened and he said, if Nye Tian is going to be assisted by a formation, he needs a martial artist with similar talent and strength to him. Only then will the angel's blood wings automatically rotate. Shift the pressure. The angel's blood wings have the ability to detect a martial artist's talent. If the talent and strength gap is too big, it is impossible to shift the pressure. The blood wing protector nodded and said in a deep voice, is there such a person in the angel race now? The skinny old ancestor's eyes trembled as he hurriedly asked. Xingguang Huaiyu's pretty face darkened. Nye Tian's talent is extremely strong. Only the Saintess and that guy are close to him in the angel race. The Saintess was the Lan Xuani that Nye Tian knew. The angel sacred token in his hand came from her. And that guy was the forbidden genius of the angel race, Qi Xinu. Indeed, in terms of talent, only these 2 people were close to Nye Tian. As for the others, even if they had holy light martial intent, their talent was far inferior to Nye Tian's. Then let them come. The skinny old ancestor nodded eagerly. Xingguang Huaiyu helplessly shook her head and said, the Saintess is too weak. She can't do it. That guy left the angel race a long time ago, and his whereabouts are unknown. The skinny old ancestor's old face froze, unable to speak. I have a candidate here. With her talent and strength, she will definitely be able to help Nye Tian divert the pressure of the angel blood wings. Fat Cat spoke at this time. The 9 extremes appeared in her hand, and she directly opened it. In a flash of light, Cher, who was under the protection of the Sacred Heart, appeared. At this time, Cher was lying there quietly. Her face was calm, as if she was sleeping soundly. The 3-eyed old ancestor frowned. He looked at Cher and said, she's dead. From Cher's body, he could only feel the aura of spacetime, but not the slightest aura of life. She's not dead, she's just seriously injured. Fat Cat's face darkened. As long as we use the angel blood wings to wake her up first, she'll be fine. You want us to use the angel blood wings on her first? The blood-winged guardian's face suddenly sank and his eyes turned cold. Nie Tian came to the City of Angels to borrow the angel blood wings for her? Shengguang Huaiyu also reacted. His eyes revealed a trace of coldness. She is the person Nie Tian wants to save. Fat Cat was not flustered and said calmly, "Now, if you want to save Nie Tian, you must save her first." The 4 blood-winged guardians, 4 old ancestors, and 1 emperor could not help but fall silent. This fat cat in front of them was actually threatening them, but in the current situation, it seemed like they could only save the unconscious woman first. After a moment, Shengguang Huaiyu raised his head and asked, "What is her relationship with Nie Tian?" "She is very important to Nie Tian. Otherwise, Nie Tian would not have personally come to the City of Angels for her." Fat Cat nodded slightly and said, "Trust me. Saving her is definitely the wisest choice." Shengguang Huaiyu's gaze swept over the 4 blood-winged guardians and the 4 old ancestors. The few of them secretly communicated and finally nodded. Since they had decided to save Nie Tian, it was equivalent to putting the survival of the angel tribe in the hands of Nie Tian. Chapter 4168. Everyone busied themselves in Bloodwing Valley. A while later, a great formation was completed. The entire valley was filled with the heavy presence of a formation. Formation inscriptions crisscrossed, condensing into 2 main nodes and 9 secondary nodes at the point of convergence. Everyone from the Angel clan was shocked. They didn't expect that this little fat cat in front of them, who didn't look like much, actually had such heaven-defying attainments in array formations. "The array has been set up. Now let's save Schwer." Little Fat Cat checked the array and confirmed that there were no problems. Then, he said to the Angel tribe, "All right." The blood-winged protector agreed. He gathered with the other 3 protectors and formed a complicated seal at the same time. Immediately, a ball of scarlet light appeared in the air. It slowly transformed, condensing into a pair of fiery wings. The fiery wings were scarlet like blood. It was an extremely shocking sight. They were the supreme relic of the angels, the blood angel wings. The instant the angels' blood wings appeared, the entire valley was filled with a rich life aura. That majestic and boundless life energy actually caused the originally barren valley to blossom with strange, colorful flowers. The eruption of life in an instant was just too wondrous. It was shocking. They could not help but feel reverence for life. The blood angel wings really are powerful. The fat cat sighed in praise when she sensed the presence of life in the surroundings, such powerful life energy. It's comparable to a stellar origin stone. The entire Blood Wing Valley was filled with an endless stream of life aura. That kind of endless and boundless aura seemed to be able to instantly destroy all decay and death. It was no wonder that the angels were still able to stand among the peak organizations of the All-Heaven Saints world even after experts like the Angel Lord and the First Emperor had passed away. In the history of the All-Heaven Saints world, many organizations had once flourished, such as the Dragon Clan, the 4 ancient sacred clans, the Fengtian sect, and so on. However, there were very few forces like the Angel Clan that had existed for a long time and had always been strong. With a powerful relic like the Blood Angel Wings, no matter how much they declined, they would not decline too much. Even though the Angel Lord and the First Emperor had passed away, they still protected the angels. They were revered by the angels for generations to come. Let's start. The blood-winged guardian nodded slightly. Then, together with the other 3 blood-winged guardians, they controlled the angel's blood wings and slowly moved on to Cher's body. Following this, the 4 of them simultaneously exerted their strength. Their bodies released waves of holy runes that flowed into the angel's blood angel wings. Instantly, the angel's blood angel wings sensed something and started to emit a blood-red light. This was the life energy that flowed endlessly into Cher's body. The sacred heart protection around Cher's body slowly disappeared, and her body began to absorb the power of the blood angel wings. The sacred heart protection was just a layer of space-time barrier. Its purpose was to stop the spacetime around Cher and maintain her original state. After the Sacred Heart protection disappeared, Cher absorbed the life force of the angel blood wings. Her originally weak aura rapidly grew stronger. In the blink of an eye, the wounds on Cher's body healed up completely, and her aura stabilized. In fact, she was even stronger than before. The 4 blood wing guardians sensed Cher's aura and immediately stopped. It was obvious that they did not want to waste too much of the angel's blood angel wings on Cher. At this moment, Cher woke up. The moment she opened her eyes, a strange light flashed across her body. "You're awake." Fat Cat saw that Cher had woken up and shouted in surprise. Cher's expression was very cold. Her gaze swept across everyone in front of her, and her aura became even colder. It was only when she saw Nye Tian that a trace of light flashed across her cold eyes. It was obvious that her current state was not Cher, but Ling Huang Jishua. "What's wrong with him?" Ling Huang Jishua asked coldly without a trace of emotion on her face. Fat Cat made a long story short and explained everything. Ling Huang Jishua listened coldly, frowned, and said, "Let's begin." Everyone from the Angel clan had a strange look on their faces. They did not expect the cold woman in front of them to be so straightforward. Next, everyone did not delay and directly began to reconstruct the martial body for Nye Tian. Fat Cat let Ling Huang Jishua, Xingguang Huaiyu, and the others enter the array, and then directly activated the array. Boom! When the formation was activated, there was a rumbling sound, and the entire valley shook. It swayed and looked like it was going to collapse. But very soon, the surrounding void stabilized. Ling Huang Jishua and Nye Tian were respectively in the 2 main array eyes of the array, while Xingguang Huaiyu and the other 8 experts were in the 9 secondary array eyes of the array. Ling Huang Jishua was helping Nye Tian to withstand the pressure from the angel's blood angel wings, while Xingguang Huaiyu and the others were helping to maintain the balance between the angel's blood angel wings and the extreme demonic restriction. The array was operating, and the power of the angel's blood angel wings constantly poured into Nye Tian's body, but the one bearing the pressure was Ling Huang Jishua. At the same time, the power of the 2 restrictions sensed it and kept colliding with each other, like 2 giant beasts fighting each other, causing the entire array to be affected. Xingguang Huaiyu and the others guarded the 9 secondary array eyes with all their strength, ensuring the balance of the 2 restrictions. The angel's blood angel wings and the extreme demonic restriction were extremely powerful. Once they lost balance, not only Nye Tian, but everyone in the array would be instantly devoured. Soon, along with the operation of the array, Nye Tian constantly absorbed the power of the angel's blood angel wings. After half a day, the entire array completely stabilized. Nye Tian was wrapped in the angel's blood angel wings, like a cocoon sleeping. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Things were developing very smoothly. But at this moment, the angel's blood angel wings suddenly changed. It actually began to release a scarlet-red light wave, appearing very unstable, as if it was about to explode. "What's going on?" The 4 blood wing guardians looked at each other in dismay, completely not knowing what was going on. The angel's blood angel wings had never happened before. In the next moment, before they had time to react, a shocking scene occurred. The angel's blood angel wings quickly retracted, condensed, and then completely entered Nye Tian's body, catching him off guard. The expressions of Xingguang Huaiyu and the others changed, completely dumbfounded. The angel's blood angel wings had been completely absorbed by Nye Tian. The power of the 2 restrictions has disappeared. Then, Ancestor 3I let out a strange cry, incomparably shocked. The others also had a look of shock on their faces, unable to speak a word. At this moment, Fat Cat suddenly understood something, let out a strange cry, and could not help but chuckle. This kid Nye Tian wants to use the opportunity of the martial body reconstruction to forcibly fuse the 2 restrictions and the angel's blood angel wings. This kid. Ancestor 3I's eyes trembled violently. He was the first to react and said in a daze, "His appetite is too big." How could he not understand Fat Cat's meaning? Nye Tian wanted to use the opportunity of the martial body reconstruction to fuse the two restrictions with the angel's blood angel wings, directly fusing these three powers into a kind of bloodline power. The blood angel wings restriction came from the angelic lord, the extreme demon restriction came from the chi demon god, and the angel's blood angel wings were the power of the angelic lord's main body. If these three powers were really fused by Nye Tian, it would be equivalent to him possessing the bloodline power of the angelic lord and the chi demon god at the same time. The angelic lord was an angel martial artist stronger than the first-generation emperor, and represented the strongest combat power of the angel race. Chapter 4169. Nye Tian wanted to fuse the angelic rulers and chi demon god's bloodlines into his own. No wonder old ancestor Three-Eyed said that Nye Tian's appetite was too big. Whether it was the angelic ruler's bloodline or the chi demon god's bloodline, they were both top-notch bloodline powers. The most terrifying thing was that these two bloodline powers rejected each other greatly. Bloodline powers were inherent in the bloodline. Even if two bloodline powers with similar attributes wanted to fuse them, it was still very difficult. The angel clan and the chi demon god were mortal enemies. The two bloodline powers were incompatible like fire and water. Just the impact of the two bloodline powers was enough to destroy a cultivator's martial body in an instant. But Nye Tian wanted to fuse the two bloodline powers. It was too crazy. Old ancestor Three-Eyed knew that fusing the two bloodline powers was definitely Nye Tian's own choice. Otherwise, the angel blood wings would not have been completely absorbed. Although Nye Tian was currently in the process of reconstructing his martial body, his consciousness was still awake. Nye Tian's complete absorption of the angel blood wings had caught everyone by surprise. In an instant, Xinguang Huaiyu and the others felt that the impact between the extreme demonic restriction and the angel blood wings restriction had weakened. The balance of the two powers had been broken. The skinny old ancestor and the others couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. They were so shocked that they couldn't speak. Everyone felt the pressure on them disappear, and walked out of the formation. Fat Cat frowned and stopped the formation. Since Nye Tian had already absorbed the power of the blood angel wings, and was trying to fuse the power of the two restrictive spells, the grand spell formation no longer mattered to him. Xinguang Huaiyu and the others couldn't help. Cold Phoenix Ji Shui couldn't help either. Everything else depended on Nye Tian. Old ancestor, what's going on? Xinguang Huaiyu calmed down and looked at old ancestor Three-Eyed. She still hadn't fully understood what was going on. Old ancestor Three-Eyed explained with a gloomy expression, although Nye Tian is heavily injured, he's still conscious. He wants to borrow the power of the angel blood wings to forcefully absorb the blood wings restriction and extreme devil restriction. What does this mean? Xinguang Huaiyu's eyes trembled. Although he understood a lot in his heart, he was still somewhat uncertain. Nye Tian wants to take advantage of the martial body reconstruction to fuse the two types of power into his bloodline, Patriarch Three-Eyed said in a grim voice, his face filled with both anger and shock. Nye Tian wants to take advantage of this opportunity to fuse the two types of power into his bloodline. In his opinion, Nye Tian was a complete lunatic. The blood angel wings, the blood wings restriction, and the extreme demonic restriction. Every single one of these three powers possessed destructive might. Not to mention Nye Tian, even an expert like Xinguang Huaiyu would face life-threatening danger if he tried to fuse these powers. What's even more frightening was that even if a miracle happened and Nye Tian managed to fuse these three powers and give birth to a new bloodline, this bloodline would be extremely dangerous and unstable. The slightest impact would cause his body to explode and he would die. Old ancestor Three-Eyed felt that Nye Tian was still too young. He couldn't resist the temptation of power and thought that he could obtain a powerful bloodline power. This bastard! He's taking the future of the angel race as a joke. Xingguang Yu could no longer restrain herself and directly cursed. She was originally very supportive of Nie Tian. But now, she wished that she could drag Nie Tian out and give him a good beating. He's too young and doesn't know what's important. The skinny old ancestor let out a long sigh and actually sounded like he was about to cry. If something happened to Nie Tian, the angel race's last hope would be gone. Moreover, Nie Tian's failure also meant that the blood angel wings would be destroyed. The angel race would suffer a great loss because of this. The 4 blood-winged protectors were even more furious and said, "If we knew this would happen, we would have killed him directly. He will succeed." But at this time, a cold voice sounded. It was very calm, but it was extremely powerful, giving people a kind of impact. Everyone turned and looked at the beautiful figure not far away, Leng Huangji Shui. "Little girl, what do you know?" An old ancestor jumped up and said, "Any of the powers that this kid wants to fuse can directly destroy him. He's simply a madman." Leng Huangji Shui glanced at the old ancestor and said with a cold expression, "I'm leaving." After saying that, she directly turned and left. "Nie Tian hasn't woken up yet and you want to leave?" The fat cat's eyes trembled. She moved and arrived in front of Leng Huangji Shui. "I and Nie Tian are destined to walk different paths," Leng Huangji Shui said and continued to leave. "Are you not going to see him?" The fat cat said anxiously. "Our paths are different. What difference does it make if we meet or not?" Leng Huangji Shui was still cold and her footsteps didn't stop. "Smelly girl, where do you think this is? You think you can leave whenever you want?" But at this time, a blood-winged protector sneered and waved his hand. A huge force fell and sealed the valley's exit. "Little girl, your relationship with that kid is not ordinary." Another blood-winged protector stood up and said, "Before that kid wakes up, you can't leave." Leng Huangji Shui frowned and didn't say anything. Instead, she directly turned around and found a huge rock to sit cross-legged and cultivate. "You're smart." The blood-winged protector sneered and no longer looked at Leng Huangji Shui. In front of so many experts, Leng Huangji Shui obviously couldn't escape. It was better for her to sit down and cultivate. She had just recovered and indeed needed to cultivate. Then, no one said anything. The whole valley was dead silent. Since Nie Tian had taken this step, even if Xingguang Yu and the others didn't accept it, they could only watch helplessly. At this time, they could only hope for a miracle. They hoped that the heavens would pity the angel clan and let Nie Tian condense his bloodline successfully. The wait was long. After a few days, Nie Tian was still in the human cocoon, as if he had fallen into a deep sleep. Old Ancestor 3i had been paying attention to Nie Tian's aura. He didn't dare to slack off. He sensed that in Nie Tian's body, 3 forces were colliding with each other like wild beasts, causing Nie Tian's martial body to erupt like a volcano. He couldn't imagine how Nie Tian could endure such a powerful collision. He could vaguely feel a kind of power flowing through Nie Tian's martial body, cushioning a large amount of the impact. But this energy's aura was too strange. He had never seen it before. Every time he tried to sense it, it would weaken. In the blink of an eye, half a month passed. Nie Tian was still in the human cocoon. His aura hadn't changed much. But old Ancestor 3i's expression was different. After half a month of observation, he discovered that the 3 forces had stabilized. As Nie Tian's martial body was reconstructed, they slowly merged with Nie Tian's flesh and bones, becoming part of his bloodline power. Can this kid really condense his bloodline? Old Ancestor 3i couldn't help feeling doubtful. He couldn't believe what he was sensing. Chapter 4170. The clear cracking sound caused Forefather 3i's expression to change. He stared at the cracks on the human cocoon. The human cocoon was about to break. Had Nie Tian succeeded in condensing his bloodline? Everyone else's expression also changed. They held their breaths and stared at the human cocoon, not daring to make a sound. They were looking forward to the next scene, but they didn't know what would happen next. Crack, crack, crack. Then, under everyone's watchful eyes, the cracks on the human cocoon split open and spread out in a spiderweb pattern. Everyone's hearts jumped to their throats and their nerves were stretched taut. Soon, the cracks on the human cocoon increased in number and size, but the human cocoon didn't split open. Everyone held their breaths and waited in silence for a long time, but the human cocoon still didn't split open. It was as if there was a giant sleeping beast inside the human cocoon, and the human cocoon had split open to allow it a better breath. However, everyone could sense a strange bloodline aura coming from the human cocoon. It was somewhat similar to the angel bloodwings and the Chi Fiend God's aura. After a long time, Forefather Three-Eye finally said in a deep voice, "It seems that he has succeeded. Old Ancestor, are you saying that Nye Tian has fused the three powers together to create a new bloodline power?" Shengguang Yu asked with a fiery gaze. He wasn't too sure about this. Yes. Forefather Three-Eye nodded, but his expression was not relaxed. But I'm not sure how successful he is. What do you mean? Shengguang Yu was confused again, and his expression became nervous. Forefather Three-Eye stared at the human cocoon and said, "Bloodline condensation only means that he has fused the three powers into his bloodline. However, the new bloodline is not stable, and it's still unknown whether it can be used normally." The expressions of Shengguang Yu and the others changed again, and they fell silent. Fat Cat looked at the human cocoon thoughtfully. He knew that Nye Tian's success in condensing his bloodline was entirely due to the power of the stars. The power of the stars was the origin of power. It was as vast as the sea and could contain everything. The angelic ruler and the Chi demon god's power were originally opposites, but because of the existence of the stars, Nye Tian forcibly fused them together. If it weren't for star power, Nye Tian would have exploded and died as soon as he came into contact with the two types of power. With the power of the stars, even if Nye Tian can't control the power of the new bloodline in the beginning, he'll be able to do so slowly in the future. The fat cat's mouth twitched slightly as she thought to herself, "This brat has made the right bet again." Condensing a bloodline with three different powers was undoubtedly another shocking gamble by Nye Tian. Fortunately, he had made the right bet. "Can I go now?" At this time, Cold Phoenix Ji Shui spoke, and asked with a cold expression. "You can't leave until he wakes up," a Bloodwing Guardian Cold replied. Cold Phoenix Ji Shui frowned, but did not say anything. She turned around and continued to cultivate. She did not care about Nye Tian's condition, as if she was certain that he would wake up. Then, a day later, the human cocoon finally cracked open. However, everyone discovered that there was another layer of human cocoon within the human cocoon. Old Ancestor Three-Eyed frowned and explained, "This might be a protective mechanism. Just like many rare butterfly beasts, they will also break out of their cocoons several times." However, what happened next shocked everyone. The human cocoon outside Nye Tian's body broke out once a day, and he broke out 8 times in a row. This should be the last layer of human cocoon on his body. Old Ancestor Three-Eyed looked at Nye Tian, who still had another layer of human cocoon that was slowly breaking. The others nodded silently. Their expressions were clearly saying, "I hope so." Old Ancestor Three-Eyed carefully observed the human cocoon that Nye Tian had shed. The outside was covered with blood scabs, and the inside was filthy with a foul smell, as if it was mud that had been discharged from the body. This was a kind of evolution of the martial body itself. It expelled the toxins and filth from the body, making the martial body purer. In fact, every breakthrough of a martial artist's realm was an evolution of the martial body, and the filth in the body would also be reduced. However, it was the first time that Old Ancestor Three-Eyed had seen Nye Tian expelling filth in such a manner. How strong is the bloodline power condensed by this kid? Old Ancestor Three-Eyed was secretly shocked, and his heart was filled with anticipation. About half a day later, the last layer of human cocoon outside Nie Tian's body finally broke open. Hua! In the blink of an eye, a pure bloodline aura spread out, causing everyone's mind to shake and their expressions to change. The pure bloodline aura exuded a strange fragrance, and at the same time, it contained an oppressive power that made everyone feel suppressed on the level of bloodline. What a powerful bloodline aura! Everyone was stunned for a moment. Xinguang Huaiyu was the first to react, and he could not help but exclaim, "This bloodline is too pure, too terrifying." Old Ancestor Three-Eyed was shocked. His eyes revealed a different kind of passion as he said, "This is the most powerful bloodline I have ever seen." Everyone else's expression was sluggish, and they were shocked to the extreme. Fat Cat looked at Nie Tian and couldn't help but frown. She murmured, "This bloodline has merged with the power of the stars." The reason why Nie Tian could condense his bloodline was because of the power of the stars, but this new bloodline contained the power of the stars. This greatly exceeded Fat Cat's expectations. The power of the stars was also a kind of power, and the star origin stone had already fused with Nie Tian. It was not an exaggeration to say that the power of the stars was the power of Nie Tian's bloodline. However, the power of the stars was the source of power, and there was a qualitative difference between it and other powers. Fat Cat felt that it was a bit strange to have the power of the stars fused with the power of another bloodline. Why is he still not awake? After a while, the angel tribe calmed down a bit, and the skinny ancestor suddenly asked with a frown. Old Ancestor Three-Eyed faintly smiled and nodded. "Boss, his new bloodline has just condensed, and he needs to familiarize himself with his martial body. He needs to complete a big cycle with all his organs before he can wake up." However, before he could finish his words, Nie Tian's tightly closed eyes suddenly moved, and then he abruptly opened them. His eyes were as clear as water. His eyes were like fire, as bright as the stars. The moment Nie Tian stood up, the aura in the surrounding space seemed to change. He stood at the center of the world, and all things in the world trembled and bowed to him. The angel tribe stared at Nie Tian in a daze, speechless. Standing there, Nie Tian was like a sharp sword, showing off his ability. Chapter 41-71. On Nie Tian's palms, the blood-colored wings and the black horns released a powerful bloodline aura, making everyone present feel an unprecedented pressure. The bloodline power formed by the fusion of the angelic ruler and demon god Chi's power was called the Celestial Centipede bloodline. The Celestial Centipede bloodline came from the angelic ruler, but it surpassed it. It was not strange for Xinguang Huaiyu and the others to feel pressure. But at this moment, Leng Huang Jishue's expression changed slightly. She sensed the bloodline aura in the space and felt a deep pressure. The difference in bloodline power was very obvious, but the pressure between them was not obvious. Sometimes, when a person with a strong bloodline faced a person with a weak bloodline, it was difficult for the other party to feel pressure because of the difference in bloodline level. Only when the difference in bloodline power between two people was too great would they feel pressure. Because the Celestial Centipede bloodline originated from the angelic ruler bloodline and greatly enhanced it, it was very normal for Xinguang Huaiyu and the others to feel pressure. But Leng Huang Jishue's bloodline power was not related to the Celestial Centipede bloodline, so why would she feel pressure? Unless the Celestial Centipede bloodline was far stronger than hers. As the reincarnation guardian of the Three Life Clan, Leng Huang Jishua represented the Three Life Clan's peak talent. It was not an exaggeration to say that her bloodline power could definitely be ranked among the 10 strongest bloodlines in the world. However, under such circumstances, she actually felt a sense of bloodline oppression in front of Nie Tian. This was simply unbelievable. "I'm leaving." But Leng Huang Jishua quickly calmed down. She only raised her head slightly to look at Nie Tian, then said calmly, "Schwer." Nie Tian snapped out of his daze and shouted anxiously. Leng Huang Jishua's figure paused, but she did not turn around. Instead, she said coldly, the share you know is no longer here. Now I am called Ling Huang Jishue. Our paths are destined to be different. Let go of each other and be at ease. After saying that, she directly walked away, her figure resolute. The people of the Angel clan were stunned for a moment, unable to react. Schwepft! Nie Tian's eyes trembled, and he took a step forward. He was just about to speak when he suddenly felt a violent force colliding with his body, and he actually spat out a mouthful of blood. Ling Huang Jishue didn't look back. Her back turned into a stream of light and quickly disappeared. Nie Tian stared blankly at the outside of the valley. The pain on his body was overshadowed by the pain in his heart. His heart felt like it was being twisted by a knife, as if a corner of his soul had been ruthlessly dug out. Nie Tian, are you all right? Only then did Xinguang Yu react. He took a step forward and supported Nie Tian nervously. Nie Tian's face was as pale as paper, and his forehead was covered in sweat, as if he had just recovered from a serious illness. I'm fine. Nie Tian wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and took a deep breath. His emotions stabilized a little, but he was still very disappointed. Letting go of each other would put each other at ease. Cold Phoenix Ji Shue's words were like steel needles piercing his heart, making him unable to let go, unable to feel at ease. It doesn't matter if it's Cher or Cold Phoenix Ji Shue. You're the one I've decided on, so I won't let you go. Nie Tian's heart trembled as he thought to himself, no matter what you have to face, I will face it together with you. After a short while, Three-Eyed Old Ancestor checked Nie Tian's martial body and confirmed that his life was not in danger. Then, he exhaled a long breath and said, Nie Tian, your bloodline has just condensed and is still unstable. You mustn't get angry or use force during this period. I'm going to check it every day. Your martial body, make sure everything is normal. He had just carefully examined Nie Tian's martial body and was very surprised. The latter's bloodline was extraordinarily stable. He couldn't imagine what was so strange about Nie Tian's martial body that it could actually fuse two extremely opposing bloodline powers. Thank you, Patriarch. Nie Tian nodded slightly and said respectfully, now that things have come to this, it's not my place to say anything more. At this moment, the blood-winged guardian stood up and looked at Nie Tian with a gloomy face. But I have to remind you that since you've fused with the angel's blood wings, you must remember that you're a heaven's force and carry the burden of the angel clan on your shoulders. The four blood-winged guardians were very dissatisfied with Nie Tian's decision to fuse with the angel's blood wings, but it had already happened and Nie Tian had succeeded, so they couldn't say anything more. Regardless of whether they admitted it or not, Nie Tian's status as a heaven's force was already stable and unshakable. I'll keep that in mind. Nie Tian smiled faintly and thought, Demon God Qi must be eliminated. Even if I don't go to him, he will come to me on his own. Half of Demon God Qi's divine soul was still imprisoned in his body. If Demon God Qi wanted to recover his strength, he must first retrieve the other half of his divine soul. Next, Xinguang Yu and Nie Tian didn't stay for long. They quickly left the Blood-Wing Valley and the City of Angels. The four blood-winged guardians and the three patriarchs apart from Patriarch Three-Eyed did not leave the City of Angels. Although the City of Angels was almost in ruins, it was still the holy city of the Angel clan after all. Moreover, the general framework of the city was still intact and could be rebuilt. When I demonized, I couldn't even unleash half of Demon God Qi's strength. Yet, I've destroyed the entire City of Angels to this extent. It's hard to imagine how terrifying Demon God Qi's strength would be in his complete state. High in the sky, Nie Tian looked at the City of Angels beneath him and couldn't help but exclaim. He had no idea that in his demonized state, he had almost brought disaster to the Angel clan. After leaving the City of Angels, Nie Tian came to the nearest small city, Five Direction City, accompanied by Patriarch Three-Eyed. Because the Angel clan had just suffered a great calamity, There were many things that needed to be dealt with. Hence, Xinguang, why you couldn't accompany Nie Tian. Over the past few days, Nie Tian could feel that his Tian Ho bloodline was getting more and more stable. His martial body had also become much stronger than before. His strength had also risen to the 9th level of heavenly righteousness, only a step away from the heavenly tribulation realm. Patriarch Three-Eyed sighed in admiration. He never expected that Nie Tian would adapt to his new bloodline so quickly. After a few days of interaction, Nie Tian and Patriarch Three-Eyed got to know each other better. The latter's name was Qi Jian, and he was already over 3 million years old. At this moment, the two of them were in an inn, preparing to rest for a while before heading to the everlasting Sacred World's Cloud Extreme City. In the inn, there were many people coming and going. Many people were excitedly discussing certain matters. Among them, two people's conversation attracted Nie Tian's attention. Have you heard? The Dragon Clan has made a big move recently. Many experts of the Dragon Clan have gathered in the Devil Cloud mountain range. It seems that they've discovered something incredible, said one of them excitedly. There's a mysterious place in the Devil Cloud mountain range known as the Ancestral Dragon's Abyss. Legend has it that most of the ancestral dragon experts died in the Ancestral Dragon's Abyss. The gathering of experts of the Dragon Clan in the Devil Cloud mountain range should be related to the legendary Emperor Heart Ancestral Dragon, said another person with a smile. Said the other person. Chapter 4172. Nie Tian's interest was piqued when he heard about the Emperor Heart Ancestral Dragon. However, the latter suddenly stopped, causing him to frown. Brother, what is the Emperor Heart Ancestral Dragon? Is it a taboo that can't be mentioned? The other person was as interested as Nie Tian and continued to ask. There are some things that are better left unknown. The man drank a mouthful of wine and smiled. Sometimes, secrets can be fatal. With that, he stood up and left the restaurant. Nie Tian's lips twitched slightly as he watched the figure leave. He stood up and followed. Patriarch Three-Eyed's eyebrows furrowed slightly as he followed Nie Tian. After the two walked out of the restaurant, they secretly followed behind the man, maintaining a distance that was neither too far nor too close. After a while, the man turned into an alley and his aura suddenly disappeared. Nie Tian frowned and couldn't help but feel anxious. He quickly followed. Watch out! Right at the instant he stepped into the alleyway, Qi Jian suddenly noticed something and shouted loudly. Nie Tian's expression changed and he reacted instantly. Sword Qi surged around his body and condensed a sword shield. Bang! In the next moment, a powerful palm force whistled out and smashed down upon Nie Tian, shattering the sword and shield. Nie Tian's figure retreated a few steps, and after he steadied himself, a wisp of blood flowed from the corner of his mouth, and his face was ghastly pale and unsightly. Brat, what are you trying to do by following me sneakily? Then, the figure appeared and looked at Nie Tian with a sneer. Nie Tian took a deep breath and his expression became better. The palm was very powerful, but under normal circumstances, it wouldn't pose much of a threat to him. It was only because he had just condensed the celestial centipede's bloodline that his martial physique was still unstable, and that was why he vomited blood. Are you all right? At this moment, Qi Jian's figure flickered and he looked at Nie Tian nervously, afraid that something might happen to the latter. Nie Tian forced a smile and indicated that he was fine. Sir, please don't misunderstand. I'm just interested in what you said just now. Nie Tian looked at the person before him and smiled faintly. At this moment, he finally had the chance to carefully size up the martial artist in front of him. He had a square mouth and wide cheeks, strong facial features, and a tall and straight figure, giving off a sense of righteousness. He shouldn't be very old, but his strength had already reached the 5th level of the heavenly tribulation. He must have held back his strength for that palm strike just now. Are you talking about the Emperor's Heart Ancestral Dragon? The man chuckled. His eyes inadvertently glanced at Qi Jian, and a trace of fear flashed across his face. How could he see through Qi Jian's strength? Yes. Nie Tian nodded. He noticed that the other party was extremely fearful of Qi Jian, so he smiled and said, "There's no need to be nervous. I'm just curious, and I won't force you if it's inconvenient for you to answer." That person stared at Qi Jian and thought, just because you don't force it doesn't mean that this old man won't force it. The Emperor Heart Ancestral Dragon belongs to the dragon race. Why should I tell you? The man said calmly after thinking for a moment. You're from the dragon race? Nie Tian frowned and couldn't help but ask. He really couldn't tell that the person before him was from the dragon race. You don't believe me? The person chuckled. Then, a gust of dragon chi surged out of his body, forming a faint shadow of a dragon around him. Huh! Nie Tian sensed the dragon chi in the air, and couldn't help but frown again. He was even more puzzled. Although he wasn't from the dragon race, he had a deep relationship with the dragon race and knew a lot about dragon chi. However, he had never seen this kind of dragon chi released by the person before him. There were many branches of the dragon race. Different clans had different dragon chi. Just like the 4 great dragon ancestor clans, every ancestor dragon was different. However, all dragon chi had one thing in common, and that was dragon will. Nie Tian was very sure that the person before him was releasing dragon chi, but he couldn't tell what kind of dragon chi it was. Do you believe me now? The person's body shook slightly, and the dragon chi dissipated. He was about to leave. Wait a moment, Nie Tian called out to him at this moment. What? Are you going to use force? The person paused and snickered coldly. If I was from the dragon race, would you tell me about the Emperor's Heart Ancestral Dragon? Nie Tian smiled faintly and a ball of dragon chi surged out of his palm. Immediately, an invisible dragon will was released, and the person's face changed color. Your dragon chi, how is it so strong? The person was shocked. He was stunned for a few seconds before he asked in a trembling voice. It was obvious that he could tell that Nie Tian's dragon chi was unusual and was deeply shocked. Can you tell me about the Emperor's Heart Ancestral Dragon now? The dragon chi in Nie Tian's palm dissipated and he smiled. The person paused and frowned deeply. He was clearly hesitating. All right, I'll tell you. Finally, he nodded and was about to speak. Watch out. However, right at this moment, Qi Jian exclaimed once more, and he suddenly raised his head to look towards the sky. Whoosh! In the blink of an eye, the sound of something tearing through the air was heard. It was extremely sharp, and a sharp blade whistled down. Everywhere it passed, the void shattered, and it went straight for the person. The person turned around and felt the killing intent, but he was unable to react. At the critical moment, Qi Jian reacted swiftly, and he slapped out furiously with his palm and directly slapped that person flying. Boom! In the next moment, the terrifying blade hit the ground and the ground cracked, forcing Nie Tian and Qi Jian to retreat. Are you all right? Qi Jian steadied himself and immediately looked at Nie Tian. He was relieved after confirming that Nie Tian was not injured. Nie Tian frowned and then moved to the person's side. The person was hit by Qi Jian's slap. Although it was just a fake slap, it was still extremely powerful, and he was knocked unconscious. Nie Tian checked his body and was relieved to see that he was not injured. Ancestor, what happened just now? Nie Tian became cold and looked at Qi Jian with lingering fear. It was too dangerous just now. If not for Qi Jian's quick reaction, that person would have been killed. It was obvious that someone had their eyes on this person and did not want the matter of the Emperor's Heart Ancestral Dragon to be leaked, so they wanted to silence him. It seems that the matter of the Emperor's Heart Ancestral Dragon is not simple. Let's not get involved in this. Qi Jian did not explain anything and sighed. Nie Tian frowned and stared at the person on the ground for a long time. He laughed and said, Ancestor, I have some history with the Dragon Clan. I need to personally see the matter of the Emperor's Heart Ancestral Dragon. Qi Jian's face darkened, but he did not find it strange. He had expected that Nie Tian would not give up so easily. Chapter 41-73. Nie Tian was surprised and doubtful when Qi Jian mentioned the aura of dragon shepherds. Dragon shepherds were a secret of the dragon race. Even amongst the dragon race itself, only an extremely small number of people knew about them. However, Qi Jian was an ancestor-level figure of the angel race. He had not been involved in worldly affairs for a very long time, so how did he know about the aura of dragon shepherds? However, what Qi Jian said next shocked Nie Tian even more. It really is the aura of dragon shepherds. Qi Jian's eyes shone with a complicated light, as if he was getting to know Nie Tian all over again. He sighed, "Looks like you're already a dragon shepherd of the dragon race." Dragon shepherd? Nie Tian was shocked once again when he heard those three words. Dragon shepherds were one of the three great prophecies of the dragon race. How did Qi Jian know? Ha 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 ha! Afterwards, Qi Jian suddenly began to laugh strangely. His expression was strange, as if he had gone mad. Great disappointment and pain appeared in his strange eyes. "Ancestor, are you all right?" Nie Tian could not help but ask nervously when he saw Qi Jian's reaction. "The will of the heavens, the will of the heavens." Qi Jian finally calmed down, but he sighed at the sky. He said dejectedly, "Who would have thought that the prime of the angel race and the dragon shepherds of the dragon race are the same person? Is this the fate of the angel race and the dragon race, that they cannot escape?" Nie Tian frowned, a confused expression on his face. What was the relationship between the prime of the angel race and the dragon shepherds? Or in other words, were the angel race and the dragon race related? From Qi Jian's reaction, there seemed to be an extremely shocking secret between the two races. The angel race and the dragon race were both peak clans of the All Heavens Saints world. He had never heard of any connection between the two races. Nie Tian. Qi Jian calmed down a long while later. He suddenly stared at Nie Tian and said sternly, "I heard that the greatest taboo of the dragon race appeared recently, right?" "Yes." Nie Tian's eyes trembled as he nodded in surprise. Qi Jian even knew about the greatest taboo of the dragon race. The dragon clan's taboo, the angel Chiemo, both of them appeared at the same time. Could this be a coincidence? Qi Jian muttered in a low voice and then fell into deep thought. Nie Tian was stunned, and the doubts in his heart grew heavier. The dragon race and the angel race, the dragon shepherds and the heaven's limit, the dragon race's taboo and the angel Chiemo. This seemed to form an indescribable correspondence. Everything seemed to become clearer and more complicated at the same time. Nie Tian's mind was in a mess, but he didn't know where to start asking. Qi Jian remained silent. He was obviously thinking about something, and his aged face grew more and more solemn. In the end, Qi Jian's face was covered in sweat, as if he had thought of something extremely terrifying. "Ancestor, are you all right?" Nie Tian couldn't help but feel nervous. "I'm fine." Qi Jian seemed as if he'd awoken from a dream, and he took a deep breath before his expression turned slightly better. "Ancestor, how do you know about the dragon shepherds? And what do you mean by an inescapable fate?" Nie Tian frowned and couldn't help asking. "Nie Tian, do you know about the Qi clan?" Qi Jian frowned and hesitated for a long time before asking in a deep voice. "The angel clan's Qi clan?" The corner of Nie Tian's eyes twitched. He said, "I once fought with Qi Xinu. It's said that he's a forbidden genius of the angel clan from the Qi clan." "Qi Xinu?" Qi Jian's expression darkened again. He said, "The Qi clan is a branch race that the angel clan is unwilling to mention. Do you know why?" Nie Tian's gaze trembled. He said, "I heard that the Qi clan's members are ugly and their bloodline is very weak. Therefore, they are regarded as the lowest existence in the angel clan. These are some of the reasons, but they are not the most important." Qi Jian's mouth twitched bitterly. He said, "The most important thing is that the Qi clan once brought disaster to the angel clan." Nie Tian frowned and waited for Qi Jian to continue. The two most important people of the Angel Clan are both from the Qi Clan. Qi Jian's expression was dark as he said two names, Demon God Qi and the First Emperor. Nie Tian's gaze shook violently. The shock in his heart was indescribable. He knew that the First Emperor came from the Qi Clan from Fat Cat. But why was the Demon God Qi also from the Qi Clan? The Qi Demon God, who brought about the extinction of the Angel Clan, was actually from the Angel Clan itself. This was too shocking. Since the Demon God Qi is from the Qi Clan, why is his power completely different from the Angel Clan's bloodline? Nie Tian became cold and asked in a deep voice. The Demon God Qi's origin is slightly complicated. Qi Jian's expression changed again. He said, he is not a member of the Qi Clan. He was formed from the Qi Clan's resentment. Resentment? Nie Tian's eyebrows furrowed in astonishment. I don't know. After all, the era of the Demon God Qi is too long ago. What has been passed down is only a legend. Qi Jian sighed softly with a solemn expression. What about the First Emperor? Nie Tian nodded and continued to ask. The First Emperor Lord was a member of the Qi Clan. Back then, he completely relied on his own strength to save the Angel Clan. However, he also made a grave mistake and almost caused the destruction of the Angel Clan. Qi Jian explained simply. Clearly, he didn't want to reveal too much. Nie Tian nodded slightly. Then he asked, what does all this have to do with the Dragon Clan? Qi Jian kept talking about the will of heaven and the inescapable fate. This confused Nie Tian. Nie Tian, have you heard of the Dragon Rebel Clan? Qi Jian's old eyes flashed and he asked. The Dragon Rebel Clan. Hearing a familiar name again, Nie Tian changed his expression. He calmed down and told Qi Jian about the Dragon Rebel Clan. Qi Jian was surprised. He had never expected Nie Tian to have such a deep connection with the Dragon Rebel Clan. It turns out that there is a will of heaven. After a while, Qi Jian heaved a long sigh. The solemnness on his face faded away. He seemed to be relieved. Forefather, is the Dragon Rebel Clan related to the Angel Clan? Nie Tian couldn't help but ask, looking confused. The Dragon Rebel Clan actually belongs to the Dragon Clan, Qi Jian said calmly. The Dragon Rebel Clan is like the Qi Clan of the Dragon Clan. As far as I know, the top taboo of the Dragon Clan is the Dragon Clan. Well, Nie Tian was dumbfounded, speechless. He had never expected the Dragon Rebel Clan to belong to the Dragon Clan. What shocked him more was that the Angel Clan and the Dragon Clan were surprisingly similar. The Qi Clan and the Dragon Rebel Clan, the Demon God Qi and the Imperial Karma Ruins, the Divine Will and the Dragon Shepherds. There was an obvious connection between these comparisons. But Nie Tian couldn't figure out what the connection was.